All right, so we are going to go into meditation, usually around 30 minutes or so. I'll lead us in today, and at one point be saying we're going to also be in a period of silence, so just be aware there will be a period of silence. You'll just be sitting here, if you're watching the screen, with our eyes closed. Hopefully not picking our noses or anything, we'll see. Got to get my little silliness in there one way or another. Um, I keep thinking there's something else I want to say before we actually start. Well, I guess just as a recommendation, once again, to just set up your environment if you can, so it's quiet as possible, and turning off your cell phones and all that. So that way you can really support yourself in going inside and taking this time with Spirit and keeping that focus. It really does make a difference. You can't see enough for that. So it's a great way to support yourself as well as everybody gathered here today. The more we all focus inwards and upwards to that action of loving, the more that it will open and reveal and share with all of us. So let's just do that. So you can just take a few more moments, just letting your body get comfortable. It's okay if you're sitting or laying down. Just allowing the body to be relaxed, but staying alert. You can close your eyes. This can assist with that process of relaxing, but also letting go of any outer focus. Just beginning to bring your attention inwards. And as you do, just allow your attention to begin to gather this place we call the seat of the soul, that place that is above the eyebrows, towards the center and the top of the head. So just let your attention gather here. Because in this action of meditation on that sacred name of God, an unloving God, this is where our attention will gather naturally, for here's where the soul resides. All we have to do is give it our attention to start to becoming aware of it. And as you do, just notice any peace or relaxation, or maybe a presence or feeling at the top of the head and forehead there. And just keep relaxing into this focus. And just begin to look upwards now in this inner space, allowing the inner vision, the inner hearing, the inner knowing, as well as the inner feeling, to awaken more, so that you begin to perceive more of that movement of spirit. You may even see that inner light as the Holy Spirit comes forward as we present ourselves at this time, just asking and inviting that divine, living, loving presence of God to be here now with each of us as we gather in this one-pointed focus of loving with God. You may be aware of that inner light, whether it appears as the golden white or the purple or blue. If you see the inner light, just hold your attention on it. The more we can focus upon it, the more we allow ourselves to be enveloped in it. and just open up and receive. Just having that intention of inviting God in to your consciousness to fill you and surround you, to just move and permeate every aspect of your beingness. If you need, even take in a deep breath and just visualize breathing in this light, pouring in from the top of your head and down through your body. Just breathe it in to every atom, every cell. You may even notice a tingling throughout your body as you do. Or as you're bathed in this light, just let it fill you to overflowing. Literally let it fill you up from head to toe, and from the bottoms of your feet back up to the top of your head. And just pay attention to see if you can be aware of that movement as it fills you. Notice if there's more peace just coming over you. Because often this action of spirit will bring up peace and stillness, so that we begin to become aware of that I am presence that is God. And at this time as well, just allow that sound or that name of the hue, that spoken name of God. In a few moments, we're going to chant it while we hold our attention at the seat of the soul. And as we do, just watch and listen at the same time you're chanting. Be aware of this frequency, what awakens within you, as we hold our attention on it and participate with it. I'm going to chant the hue out loud 3 times. You're welcome to join in out loud or inwardly, or even just listen if you wish. Allow that frequency just to vibrate and awaken the soul within. Just take in a deep breath and we'll begin. Just keep chanting, being aware of how that activates, stirs, awakens that essence of loving within. Notice that presence at the seat of the soul. So you just continue chanting. You're welcome to chant out loud or bring it within now and just chant in that inner sanctum, allowing that frequency of loving within the name to bring you awake and aware to the divine presence. So as we move into a time of silence, just continue observing and chanting, allowing yourself to awaken to that greater knowing of the divine. Just continue opening up. And in this opening, allow God's loving to continue filling you. As you receive, so shall you give. So just keep receiving God's loving and giving God's loving. So continues to flow. It's a river of loving. So just continue receiving and giving this loving. Just take in a few more moments inside. Just coming present back to the seat of the soul. And once again, just being aware of that flow, of that experience as this loving moves in you and through you. Just continuing to let it fill you to overflowing. Allowing it to awaken you. Allowing it to lift you. And all we have to do is focus into it and give our loving to God. And just let God do the rest. As you're ready, if you wish, you can open your eyes. Or you can keep them closed if you like. Wow. Should I start?
Yeah, that'd be fine.
I don't know if I'm ready to come out of meditation yet, boy. It's really nice. So, a little sentence I got in meditation was, it's time for healing. It's time for healing. So let's see what I'll say about that. You know, we always talk about letting go and letting God. To me, that's how healing can take place. Years ago, I remember when I used to look at a lot of the action of healing, because I used to be involved in holistic health a lot more before I started doing this with Jim. And I know there's so much focus on what can we do to heal, whether, you know, that's medications or surgeries or nutritional and dietary things, or on emotional mental levels with therapies and all to heal, you know, mentally and emotionally as well as physically. And there's always such a focus on the healing and what to do to create the healing. But as the more I got deeper into meditation, that as I opened up, I remember very clearly Spirit sharing with me at one point that focusing on the healing doesn't heal. It's only the loving that can heal. So we need to focus on the loving. And as we focus on the loving and just open and allow that loving to move, well, then the healing takes place. Um, and so I got to really see that more on many different levels as that unfolded, from spirit down through the mind, emotions, imagination, and body, and even into the body itself. A lot of what you might hear in different holistic types of approaches to healing is that they'll often say the body will heal itself. We just need to create the space to allow it to do what it does. And there's truth to that, that this action of spirit on all the levels, not only spiritually, but down through the mind, the emotions, and body, if we allow it to do what it does, that we just have to give it the space. And that action of loving itself will always bring things back to itself, or back, if you want to put it in other words, a place of balance or homeostasis, where everything comes back to that normalcy. And that's a lot of what we're actually doing on this pathway in this action of meditation, but truly the spiritual aspect of it. That is, some people look and call it spiritual healing. We don't use those words here. We talk about soul liberation and soul awakening and the soul going home to God and once again becoming one with God. But I know other places would call it healing or spiritual healing, and not necessarily spiritual healing in the physical. Well, that's part of it too. That as we really open to loving, or that action of the Holy Spirit, that the loving itself will restore balance. It'll restore health. It'll restore who we are. We just have to, as I say, get out of the way or create the space to allow loving to do what it does. That's why it's often called let go and let God. So in other words, we've got to let go of those things that we've created that don't allow that loving to do what it does and heal things or bring things back to balance and restore things. I remember a talk Jim did years ago. I think we titled the talk Restoration of the Soul. Mm-hmm. And is the action of this meditation that we're doing here on the path of sound and light, whereas we really focus on the sacred name of God, and that action that it does is that it literally restores the soul back into the heart of God. And I know it's funny to say, because when we always come to that main thing Jim has shared, one day you'll wake up and realize you never left the heart of God. So why are we talking about restoration, right? Right. It's always kind of the joke. It's all an illusion. But we often talk that it's not. And that's obviously a lot of the awakening process of what it boils down to. So it's funny, I just realized when I said what it boils down to, it's funny because that's a phrase out there, what it boils down to, because what happens when you boil things down, it comes down to its real core essence, right? Well, that's a lot of, I guess, what you could say we're doing in the action of meditation, or boiling down to that. The more we do the meditation and open to the loving is that flame, if you will, that will boil all that is not of spirit, so that it clears, cleanses, releases, right? The healing process that loving does, and it boils down to now that core essence, which is who we are as the soul. So it restores us by clearing away or boiling off. That's a new one. Boiling off the karmas. Okay, we got a new one instead of burning off the karmas. That is, it releases those things we call karmas, which is really just our different thoughts and feelings, all the belief systems, all the things we're caught up in. Well, those are the things that we've created that have caused that experience of separation from God. that experience of falling asleep and not remembering or knowing that we are one with God and have never left the heart of God. So healing is done through the action of loving. But the true healing that we speak of here is really that action of the restoration of the soul. That as we allow and open to the Holy Spirit in this meditation, that Holy Spirit will come into our consciousness and it knows what to do. We don't need to do anything with it. We don't need to direct it. We don't need to tell it what to do. We don't need to control it. All we need to do is open up to it and allow it. And then loving does the healing. So that healing is really an action of removing and letting go of all these different thoughts and feelings and fantasies and desires. I always like to say, wrap it up and call the 7 deadly sins. All of that stuff, or we call garbage or karma or whatever you want to call it, that we just have to allow the Holy Spirit to come in and restore us, the soul. And it does this often by removing and dissolving or boiling down, as I've been saying today, these other things that we've created in our consciousness, in us, around us, and that we continue living, believing, feeling, imagining all the things we still want in life or what our future holds or what we're trying to let go of the past, which is a good one, obviously. I'll probably talk about that. Letting go of the past. Because so much of our future is actually created by what we've been holding on to or have created in the past and are still continuing to perpetrate it or continuing to recreate it so that it continues forward, creating our future. But because we have forgotten and lost sight to the truth of who we are as that divine, living, loving essence of God, we tend to believe and think that what we're doing here is real, right? So our thoughts, our feelings, our imagination, and then our physical experience give us the makeup that this is the reality. And so we're ever caught up in and looking to the future of what we want our lives to be, how we want to feel, even our belief systems. There's so much today around mindset and creating the life we want. And so much of this quantum physics is literally getting into the details and the science of how the mind and emotions work to do that. But that's all good if you want to create more karma. But if you'd like to start to heal, because just remember, creating karma also causes more distress or disturbance in the consciousness that then keeps us out of that state of balance or being healed, okay? That all these things we do with the mind, emotions, imagination, body keeps putting us out of balance. So we never give ourselves that chance of healing. To be able to give ourselves a chance of healing, well, we always got to come back to that centered point and open to the loving and allow the loving to come in and do what it does. But again, as I said, this healing is more than just a physical, mental, emotional healing. It's actually beginning to now release and assist us in getting free of those creations or karmic patterns that we've created in our mind, emotions, imagination, and physical experience, right? So that is how we look at healing here, spiritual healing, is just truly just allowing the movement of loving into our consciousness and into all of our beingness, so that we're neither creating the future or causing any more disturbance at the least, but also as we continue to allow that and we open to it more, it'll even go into our past, right? In truth, it's always just present in the moment. But what we would call our past, just like our future, is something that maybe we've experienced or going to experience. And it still has an energetic memory, if you want to call it that. It has an energy that we have attached to that experience and our thoughts and our feelings and our imagination. And so, another way of saying it, it's in our unconscious or subconscious. We've forgotten about it, or if it's just a long lost memory that we recall once in a while. But if there's a charge of energy on it, that charge of energy is still keeping it alive, even unconsciously. It's like a wound, okay? Say you cut yourself, in that you've got to allow, now what do you want to do? You often want to clean it so there's no bacteria or things that get in there to cause infection. So you want to clean the wound, right? Create the space so that it can heal. Maybe even cover it or put some ointment on it to support it in its healing. But if we didn't do that and we just kept going about doing things and allowed the wound to stay open, let dirt and bacteria get in it, and we did things that kept re-injuring it, reopening the wound, well, that's kind of what we're doing with these karmic patterns in belief system that have caused the disturbance or the pain and suffering we go through. It's like an open wound that as we keep doing these patterns, if you will, that have been causing our pain, our suffering, our disturbance, that's the same thing as literally going and keep opening that wound where we've cut ourselves. So one, it never gives it a chance to heal to begin with. But more than that, the longer we do that, well, what happens? Well, it opens a space to now allow other things in, called infection, called things worse, that it could get so bad, you could have to amputate your arm, things like that. And that's what happens karmically, that the longer we keep stimulating that open wound, it causes more disease, disturbance, and imbalance because we're not allowing it to heal by allowing that loving end to bring back to homeostasis or balance. It just loving naturally heals things and brings them back to, if you want to call it, their origin point or that place of normalcy where it's all in that state of balance. So that's what we're doing karmically with ourselves, okay? That's why we'll experience at times in life where it seems like everything's going to hell, right? All this is building up and we've got so much, we just feel buried and life's falling apart and caving in on us. And so we think the world's falling apart, mentally, emotionally, we're having a breakdown, we're so going through the stress of all, everything is just crumbling. We think it's the end of the world type of thing. Well, that's often the case now once we've kept doing that karma so much, and that wound now has gotten worse and worse because we didn't do what we needed to allow it to heal. So it accumulated more and more of that bacteria and dirt, so to speak, to make it worse. And in other words, all the thoughts and feelings and fantasies or imaginations that we would put into these karmic patterns, it would fester. We'd make it worse. Everything we get so obsessive compulsive, like with negative thinking and thinking the worst of everything. That's what happens. That's like the dirt and bacteria in a wound that causes the infection where it gets worse and worse. So that's why you hear us in here, pay attention to your thoughts and feelings, actions and reactions. That's why we talk about it so much, because we've got to become aware within ourselves, what are we doing that is creating the experience that we are having, not only physically, but our own imagination, our own emotions, our own thoughts, our overall holistic experience of life. We've got to pay attention to realize what we are actually doing that is causing this. A lot of times when it gets so bad, we will feel like the ultimate victim, like we have no power, no control. It's being done to us, and there's nothing we can do about it. It's everybody else's fault. It's the world's fault. It's the government's fault. It's my family's fault. It's anything's fault but ourselves. And like we have no choice. Well, that's what happens when that karmic load gets so heavy and we feel so buried by it. And it comes to that point where, like I said earlier, if it's bad enough, literally you like amputate a body part. That's what happens. That's literally the reality in the illusion of what takes place. So if we look at this karmically, there are things that can happen that build up to be so bad, sometimes it requires an amputation, right? Well, the way that can look spiritually is where we finally, being buried by the way the karma are crushed, so to speak, we give up, we fall down. And in that process is where we finally let go, because we can no longer burden the weight of this karma. And so when it's at that point where now all has come to an end, so to speak, there's no more we can do. It's time for the amputation. In other words, there's nothing more to be done other than let it be amputated, let it go. Well, that's pretty much what happens in life. Have you noticed that yet? Everything comes to these crisis points, whether it's just in our own personal life or at a global scale. Things come to a crisis point where now it has to change. In other words, it can no longer keep going the way it's going because that infection's gotten so bad it is literally killing it, and we need to cut it off, so to speak, so that it doesn't kill us overall. So it's one way of looking at how these karmas can build, and that when we come to a certain point in life, that it has to change. There's nothing more to live out. It's time for it to go. In other words, it's had the life it's had, and it's time for it to die. And this will go on whether we're aware of it or not, whether we're on this path of sound and light or not. These things go on and on all the time as the soul goes through its journey of life. Now, what we're doing here on this path of sound and light, as we move into meditation and open up to God, well, this is different, because what happens there is that in the other circumstance, when we're just walking through the world doing our karmas, and here we get an arm amputated or something, and well, that may be done, but if we haven't done anything to change the beliefs and thoughts and feelings or the patterns by which created that, we can go and recreate it, and then the other arm, and then something else. That's what happens in the world. It's called evolution, okay? Well, what happens when we open the meditation and God's grace? Well, what did I say earlier? Loving is that which heals as well as restores. All right? So what we're doing here is spiritually, when we meditate in this action of liberation, with that sacred name of God, call the sacred name of God God's healing ointment, right? To be anointed, or the anointed in oil, there's God's healing ointment. We'll just call it that. So I'm having fun, obviously, with little physical examples, but there's a real truth to it spiritually, which is why we share the physical examples. So that as we open to that healing ointment or God's loving and allow it in, well, then through that, well, what do you hear these things spiritually? To be washed or cleansed by the Holy Spirit, right? Well, that's what it does. It washes, it cleanses, it purifies the wounds. In other words, it begins to now wash away the dirt, the bacteria, all that, the stinking thinking, the emotions, all the imagination and all that it created the wound to begin with, and then keeps it going. But when we meditate and open to the action of the Holy Spirit, well, then that loving comes in and starts to wash away even the thoughts and feelings, even the fantasies, even the physical things where we're doing that has been perpetrating the karmic pattern and causing the wound to keep getting worse. So as we do that, as the loving comes in and does that, now it restores and washes away so that it can now heal and be restored. And so as we're doing that karmically, that loving is doing that cleaning, clearing away. Well, what happens? Well, when it does that now, and that restoration is where we begin to wake up spiritually. In other words, as it's all washed away, the dirt and everything that was blinding or blocking our awareness and perception of the truth of the divine is cleared away. So we actually begin to wake up and become more aware of that light and loving, all right, that God is in that presence. And then the more we do that, the more the healing and restoration takes place. And that's all we have to do, is keep doing that. So then eventually, what do? So just like you hear and hear, we recommend 10% of the day, every day, to do this meditation with the sacred name of God. Because if we do it daily, we are daily creating that space now for this healing to take place. It's just any good habit you would do, even for the body, whether it's food, nutrition, whether it's exercise, whether it's getting out in the sun and breathing good air, whatever that is that you do even for the body. Well, this is what we do for the soul. It's often called a spiritual exercise, or as we call it here, more of an active meditation, because we're actively sharing a loving with God and we're actively receiving God's loving for us. So as we do this on a daily basis, it now keeps that channel of healing open so that that loving can continue to pour through us to keep us cleansed, purified, washed. And in that, then, one, it does not allow the space for infection, in other words, karmic patterns, to continue. So those karmas that we've been running, now as it cleanses every day, it can't keep going, because as it tries to keep going, it gets washed away every single day. So if we meditate every day, those karmas of the past come up to try to keep getting their way, to cause more infection and pain. It can't do that, because that flow of the Holy Spirit, every time it lifts it, it cleanses it away, it purifies it. So those karmic patterns we've created in the past and that we keep living, they're not able to live anymore. They're not able to keep going forward. And so in that, guess what happens? We stop living those patterns out. In other words, the very negative future we are creating from these karmic patterns are being dissolved or boiled down, as I said earlier, so they no longer exist. So then what is there to live into the future? Well, there's not. It's literally like erasing our future. But at the same time, we're actually erasing our past. But yet we're neither looking to the past or looking to the future. We're doing it all right here in the present moment, here and now, by being present with spirit in our meditation and looking up. Not looking back, not looking forward, not looking down, looking up. Because it is up, in and up, where we open up, where that source of healing, that source of loving resides. And if we do this consistently, like I said, daily, as we recommend, then what happens? Well, one, we train ourselves into a new pattern called looking in and up. So now we start taking more of a vertical path, if you want to say forward. As we move forward into our future, it now starts to move upwards rather than karmically, horizontally in the world, where we're more karma, that karma is dissolving. So now we're just moving more and more into spirit. And any karmas that are still to be completed, that have been long in our unconscious, right? Those are going to keep coming up as long as we're alive. Because this life here is meant to fulfill those karmas, right? So they've got to come forward from our past to be fulfilled. But as long as we keep now this upwards focus with spirit, every new karma that comes up, or any old karma that, say it's a big life pattern, it'll be little by little daily cleared, cleared, cleared. And then whatever's left, even on the last breath, now will be washed clear and lifted as our soul is on that last breath. Because that last breath then is literally the completion of the karma that we would have now created another life with to continue living out into the future in this physical creation. But it's no longer there because it's been washed away, cleansed, healed, let go, forgiven. You know, one of the other things I love, that phrase, every day is a new day, right? Isn't it amazing? We can have a good or a bad day, and the weight of the world is on us when we go to bed, and then we get up, and the next day can be so different. Just literally whatever hours overnight while we are asleep, and we wake up the next day, and it can be completely different. It's amazing. Well, there's a form of restoration there. But here's the other thing. Sleep will restore things, and it helps that action of the soul deal with, handle, whatever, all these other karmic patterns, and gives a chance for us to start to heal. But the same thing is true if we do daily meditation. Not only is every day a new day, but every meditation is more than a new day. We really do the meditation daily for the 2.5 hours. Every meditation can literally create a space of not only a new day, but a new experience, because as it releases the old experience, it creates a space now for something new to come forward. But nothing new can come forward if we keep living out the same old, right? But the thing is, we keep trying to create in our own thoughts and feelings and imaginations what we think we want, not realizing we're creating what may seem like so wonderful. Oh, I want this great relationship. I want the perfect job. I want all this money. We want, thinking that if we get that, life's going to be fantastic. And maybe it will be for a little while, like, wow, okay, cool. You know, and then life goes on day after day, the very thing we had hoped for and we have now. You know, it's like getting a new car. Wow, I got my dream car. It's so beautiful, shiny, and new. You know, that new car smell. Time goes on, you keeping care of it. You take care of it so well, you know, wash it every week, keep it so clean. A year goes by, maybe you're doing a little bit still, a couple years, a few more, and before you know it, you just don't seem to care about it anymore. Now it's old, it's dirty, it's worn out. Not so exciting anymore, right? That's what happens. Any new relationship, any new job, any new experience of any kind in this physical world. It can be new and exciting, but then like anything, that wears off. We get used to it. We get familiar with it. And then it gets dirty. And then it gets worse and having problems, and then we got to spend all this money fixing it, right? So before we know it, we're down that road of doom and gloom once again. Oh my God, another open wound. Geez, when am I ever going to heal? Well, if you look at these patterns in life, hopefully, if you're listening here now to what we're sharing, maybe you can begin to look that there's another way. And not a way of getting what we want in the world, but a way of letting go of everything we want in the world, realizing everything we want sets us up for this continuous cycle or recycling, I guess we could say. We'll recycle, really, that's what we're doing. Recycling these things to have them new and shiny until they wear out, and then we recycle it to have a new and shiny one. You know, just like we do with our bodies. Life after life, reincarnate, recycle. I like to call it the recycling program, literally. It's what we're doing here. But sooner or later, we realize, my God, all this stuff, it's always the same. Even when it's new, it's still the same. Well, when you start coming to that awareness inside, that's usually when some part of us starts to stir awake and going, there's got to be something else, man. What is going on here? This is getting old. It's like, wow, not only is this disturbing and getting tiring, it's getting old. There's got to be something else. And that's when we start questioning and start looking, start seeking. And that begins us on this upwards path, this path of spiritual healing, spiritual liberation, spiritual awakening, spiritual restoration. But it's up to us to come to these awarenesses. What we share here is not like another belief system for sure, but it's not something here we're saying to do to fix your life, to take care of the problems in your life. That's not what this pathway is about. But what's funny, it does do that. I like to say that's just a benefit or a side effect. But what we're doing here is about letting go of all that. We're not trying to fix our lives here, but yet our lives get fixed in the process, but yet things get healed in the process. Things change in the process. But that's not what this pathway is about that we teach here. This pathway, what we're doing here, is literally, truly all about releasing the soul from its entrapment and all these karmic patterns that keep recycling. Literally what we're doing, the truest spiritual healing there is, not just about healing a physical wound. It's about letting loving in fully to restore the soul to its natural habitat and experience, which is in the soul realm, not in this body, not in our imagination, not in our emotions, not in our mind, not in our unconscious or subconscious, in the soul realm. Literally that spiritual place where the soul lives and resides in truth. So this journey is the restoration of the soul. In this world, it looks like spiritual healing, but the truth is, as I just said, it's about this letting go, releasing, setting free from. But we need to begin to start seeing that in this world, it took our ego and mind and emotions to create these experiences that we live in the world. We need to realize, well, yes, that is the creativity of the soul that we're learning to do here, to be creators made in the likeness of God. And we're learning through all that we're creating with these thoughts and feelings, fantasies, or our imaginations and our physical experience. But at some point, we learn what that is to create. And then it gets old, like I was saying. So it's like, wow, we've created this over and over and over. And when it gets to that point, we'll be like, we'll begin to look now for what's new. And that really is new, because part of this action of, if I can call it the healing, like I was saying, and it's also the letting go. Well, what's happening then is we're wrapping things up, cleaning it up, fulfilling it. is that now all those things we've created, it's time to take responsibility. In other words, it's time to really look at and learn not only what we created, but how we created it. What was I doing? What was I doing in my mind? What thoughts were I holding over and over? What were the emotions that kept repeating? What fantasies did I keep wishing for and wanting? This is a part of this pathway we call self-study, where we become more self-aware of what it is we've been doing in ourselves to create all this. So as we're doing the meditation, that grace of the Holy Spirit is going to do everything I was talking about with this healing and freeing part and restoring the soul. But as it's doing that, part of our job now is to not only awaken spiritually, but the other part as we awaken spiritually is that that light will shine into the mind and the emotions, imagination, body. And as it does, it begins to reveal. That revelation is where the learning takes place. So in other words, we're learning to become creators. But in here we like to say to become responsible creators. And so that word responsible means that we're now really applying that action of learning. So as we observe or look and listen, watch, feel, all of that, what we've done to do all this, the good and the bad, all the pain we've created and all the pleasure we've created, that there's the fulfillment. And that's important. Because a lot of people, when they go through the pain of the karmas they've created, they just want to chop it off and get it done with. Understandable. But where the value is also now fulfilling and learning from that experience. Well, yeah, it's gonna get, it's gonna be gotten rid of, it's gonna be released. But a lot of that releasing is also an opportunity now to learn, to realize, gosh, what did I do? How did I create this? And now I'm learning how I can, in a sense, dissolve it. And that's what the meditation is. That's what loving does. That's when we practice, as our LAF acronym, loving, accepting, forgiving. As we do all that, is how we begin to take responsibility for our thoughts, feelings, actions, and reactions. And as we do that, again, it starts to just awaken within us, and we begin to see what we've done, how we've done it. So we learn. So as you've heard Jim share in the past, karmas are basically unlearned lessons. So we've got lessons to learn. And it's, of course, through our experience that takes place. So all we have to do is pay attention, right? And it'll awaken our awareness as Spirit opens and reveals it to us as it's washing away and cleansing and healing all these things and restoring the soul back into the soul realm through this whole process. I like to say down and out and in and up. Through this whole process, through the washing machine, I guess you could say, up, down, spin around, where all of it's going to be fulfilled. So we want to approach it, though, in a way that is not only sacred, because it is the most sacred action we can do, but also with this eye open, so that we really learn and fulfill why we're here in the first place. Because that's a lot of what we're here to do. We're not here to just get rid of our karma. We're here to fulfill our karma through loving, accepting, forgiving, and coming to the realizations that we are made in God's image as loving and creative. So we're learning to be responsible co-creators with God. And it is through all of this together where we do our part and God does God's part as we allow and invite God in, where we become co-creators with God. where we do it together in partnership, in union, or I like to say communion in action, right? But it all starts in the meditation, that in and of focus and opening to God and allowing the loving in. That is how this communion in action takes place. So there's a natural turning from now being a creator in the world to now communing with God within. And it's a very natural process how it unfolds. We just describe a lot of it here, give a little more detail. So that as it unfolds, it might make it a little easier for you to unfold with it, let alone participate with it and do your part. Because that's the thing, to be responsible creators, we need to do our part. So we need to take responsibility and do the meditation. What's the meditation? Just loving God and allowing God to love you. I say just, it's so funny to call it just. I guess we've been doing it so long, it's ordinary for us every day. Well, just loving God and letting God love me. 2.5 hours a day, 10% of the day, just a normal day to day. And it does become that. But in those beginning years, there's usually a lot more effort and focus. And that's important to do, just like anything. It takes time, it takes effort, it takes focus. And we want to put our energy into it because it is that level of taking responsibility that we begin to really open and create now this new action within ourselves and just watch it unfold as we continue to live our lives on every level. So it's time for healing, whatever that means for you, whether it's something going on in your present life, or from a past life or a future life. Instead of presently in your life, your present life as well. Right here, right now, we'll leave it at that. But not present life here, not that other one on another level, right? Try to have a good laugh, as we like to say, humor. So it has some humor in it all. So hopefully this stirred a few things that maybe during our Q&A time. Please, if you have questions around what I shared today, write those down and send in your email. And of course, we'll answer those this afternoon as we continue on. I think that's it for the moment.
Okay. Well, it was interesting on meditation. I went back to many, many years ago when I first started sharing with people and giving talks and having classes. And one class I was asked to come and present a course or a class in the psychic realms at St. Mary's University. A professor had come to one of the classes I was having, and he wasn't even there. He was there to pick up his wife, and he had shown up a lot earlier than he was supposed to. And so rather than wait out in the car, he came in and sat down and was just in the back of the room listening, but not really paying much attention. But I hit on a couple of subjects that really caught his attention, and he wanted to know more later. He didn't come up that night and talk, but he did come back with his wife, and he sat quietly listening, no asking questions or anything. And but afterward, he came up and he said if he could have a half hour of my time, he thought I could help him clarify some things. And so I had no idea who he was or anything. So we just sat down after everybody had left and talked. And it was kind of interesting because we were at this house of this lady who often would have me do classes at her home. And she and her husband were about ready to kick us out because they were ready to go to bed because it got into much more than a half hour discussion. And so we decided to meet again afterward at another time, and he would just call me and I would show up, is how it would work. But what happened was I was talking that night, and a lot of the classes I gave in the 70s was about spirit, about God, about meditation, but also about the psychic realms, because in the 60s and 70s, the psychic realms were a fascination for people, and they were very interested in all that you could do psychically, energetically, with your consciousness. And so everybody was trying to see auras, trying to interpret dreams, trying all these different things to manipulate the energy psychically to heal, to move things, or whatever. And I kept trying to bring people focused upward, past the psychic realms and into spirit. And the way I would say it often would be, seek first the kingdom of heaven, and all else shall be given unto you. And in truth, if you do look inward and upward first and seek the heaven within you, the God within you, that spiritual part of you first, and awaken it and open to it, these other gifts can happen if that is a part of your life's journey. And so I would try to explain to people that the psychic realms were just a mediocre trip that we could take and kind of view some interesting things, but not really live there for your life, because it's not really a realm for long-term existence or where you can learn a lot of lessons spiritually. So when I was talking, he found it very fascinating one time when I talked about the realms, and I was explaining the different realms to the class, and trying to get people to focus above the etheric realm, because anything from the etheric down is just part of the psychic and material world, and it doesn't really relate to the soul or the spirit as far as its awakening. It's a part of the experience that the soul is looking for, but the experience often is done very quickly through maybe just a couple of 3 lives. But it's the karmas that hold us here, that we create here, that would hold us in bondage here much longer and have to come back again and again for many different lives. But I was always trying to get people to remember that it was about God first. That was always my statement, God first. And he was fascinated by that statement, God first, and about getting above the lower realms to get into the higher. And so I was trying to explain to him like I explained to the class, but he didn't come to everything, so he hadn't heard it all. And I was explaining how the etheric realm was really the realm of nothingness. And out of that realm of nothingness, everything below that realm was created. And that was the thing that kind of confused him. He said, how does all this get created out of nothing? How do you take nothing and create something like this realm, this life? And I said, I know it's hard to imagine, but whoop, what was that? That was the etheric realm sounding off. So he had a hard time understanding what I meant by nothingness and in the etheric realm, and then all this coming into manifestation. So I began to just share with him a little bit more about different things, and I hit on something, I don't know what, but I hit on something, and from that moment on, he was fascinated by what I talked about, because he said, you have a lot of experience in different things, but you don't have the scientific way to explain them. And I said, well, I'm not a scientist. I never really studied very well in school. I did what I had to do to graduate, and I moved on. And he said, "Well, I'm going to try to work with you a little bit to give you a greater explanation and understanding." And I said, "Well, I don't know if I need to understand this creation any better than I do. I'm really wanting people to look to God and to spirit and to their own soul and look up beyond this creation." And he said, "Well, that's good, but do come and visit me. I'm at St. Mary's University. I'm a physicist there, and I would like to sit down and talk to you a little bit." And so we did. I would go over maybe once or twice a month, and we would sit down and talk. And out of that discussion and talking, I met a couple of other physicists, one from Incarnate Word College and two at Trinity University. And it ended up over the time that I was invited to talk at all three of the different places of education. And I found it very fascinating because most of the people that came in were the students. They were very curious about what I was doing there because I actually taught non-credited courses at Trinity University and Incarnate Word University, or Incarnate Word College, and I would give a speech once in a while for the professor at St. Mary's. So I got around through the educational circle some, and I found it fascinating because here I was talking to all these students of higher education and all that were just finding it fascinating what I had to share. And all I was doing was sharing about God, about spirit, about experiences in meditation, experiences in out of body, about the psychic realms and all of that. But these are the things they didn't get taught in school. And if they went to some of these other things out in the world having to do with the psychic, they got misinformation, they got distracted, they got caught up in certain areas that would hold them there if they weren't looking higher. So, in sharing with one of the professors at Trinity University, he found it very fascinating what I was talking about and wanted me to talk to his class one day. And when people heard that I was going to be there, the class filled up very fast, more than with the students. It was a big auditorium, but it got full pretty fast. And he came over to me and he said, "So what did you do, invite all these people?" And I said, "No, I thought these were your students." And he said, "No, maybe a third of them are, but the rest of them, I don't know where they came from." And so he introduced me and I began talking and sharing. And as I was, hands would go up just periodically. And I kept saying, I'd like to wait until the end of the discussion to, do the question and answers. And so he finally got up one time and said, "Please, people, stop raising your hand. He'll know to stop at a given time and do question and answers. So just stop raising your hands and holding them up like that." And so that all calmed down for a minute. And then this one man, he stood up and he just kept standing up. And I looked at the professor and I looked out the audience and I said, "All right, you're determined, so ask your question." And he said, "So what kind of drugs are you taking?" And I go, "What?" And he goes, what drugs do you take before you do this meditation stuff?" And I said, "I don't take drugs. I have never taken any recreational drug. I take some other drug once back when I was a child, but that was about it." And he said, No, you've got to be on drugs of some kind to have these kind of experiences. Because he said, "I have experiences similar to that, that you're talking about, but I don't go as high as apparently you're talking. And I said, well, through drugs of some sort, you can have these experiences. You can open up into some of the psychic realms and have psychic experiences, but they are limited and they can only take you so high. And you get stuck in them sometimes in those realms because of it. And he kept saying, no, no, you're doing drugs. And so the professor stood up again and he says, let him just talk. Let him tell his experience. You can come up here some other time if you want and tell us your experience on drugs. But that's not the interesting fact here right now that we're talking about. So he finally left. He just walked out of the class. And a couple of a couple of people applauded. And so I didn't know what that was about, but anyway, it was interesting. So I began my talk again, and then at Incarnate Word College, one of the professors wanted to know all about nothing. What is nothing to me? If I live here and I have a physical body and I can physically touch and see and feel and work things in the physical, what is nothing? And I tried to explain to him the whole concept of the universe, the realms, and what the etheric realm was all about. And he said, I can understand nothing, but I can't understand how you feel about it, how you see about it, how you think about it, and what you do with nothing. And I said, well, I do nothing with nothing, because the nothing is a barrier. It stops you in your progression of awakening and understanding who you really are as a soul and as spirit. And so I really just pass through that realm very quickly if I can, because if you stop there, you can really get stuck there for a long time. And he said, how would you get stuck in nothing? And I said, because this lower creation is so noisy, so full of things to distract us and attract us and hold us and get us caught up in, that when we move into a place where there is nothing, absolutely nothing, and we exist there for a short time, we find it so quiet, so peaceful, so what we've been longing for in stillness, that we'll stay there for the longest time to maintain that quiet, that peace, and not have all the stuff that the world puts upon us. And so if we do that, we're stuck still in the lower creation, because above that is where the soul comes from, and it's where the soul finds its oneness and its true peace, a place of peace and joy and quiet. And it's only there that we begin to understand that there's something much higher above it all. And so I shared with him as much as I could about all that. And he began to say, well, and he started on the blackboard drawing all this stuff about what physicists were finding and particles and this and that and the other and the atomic structure. And he said, how do you describe all this? And I said, it's all just part of the physical matter. What you're describing is part of the physical universe, the physical matter. It's a part of creation at this level. But I kept saying, but creation doesn't really exist here. It's all made of nothingness, and it's going to return to nothingness in its own time. And it has a limit of existence. And when it comes to the end of that existence, it returns into nothingness once again. And he says, I don't understand how you have this nothingness controlling the universe in some way. And I said, well, it's hard to understand. You might want to start meditating, and it could possibly reveal to you something about it. but I don't know, I don't have the words to explain it. And and he said, well, that's what you need. You need words. You need to go to school and get a degree in physics and understand physics. And then you could really describe what you're talking about and maybe make sense. You might come up with something that we scientists need to understand, but the way you explain it, it's hard to imagine. And I said to him, I said, did Einstein do everything to be understood, or did he stretch the mind and stretch the reality of things to discover beyond what everybody understood and believed in? And he says, don't go and cover that stuff with me. I'm part of all that. He says, but I know what's behind it, and I know how to get there with it. I can show you mathematical equations and so on and so forth. Well, it was interesting. That whole period of my life was just from 1970 to 1976. It was fascinating. So with that, now I look out and I'm looking at what physicists are saying, that now they have come up with mathematical equations that prove God, not question God or doubt God or say there is no God. Now they say they can prove it 100% that there is a God. And they can prove 100% this is really nothing. This is an illusion. This is not real. And that we just have to wake up to that and do the best we can in living in it while we're here, but know that this isn't the ultimate. And I look at that and I go, oh my God, how many years has it taken for scientists to come to this reality? And so it's going to be interesting to find out what more they're going to find out, what's beyond the etheric, beyond that nothingness. And I think they will. I think there's going to be a breakthrough consciously to begin having scientists and others in those fields to begin to awaken to the fact that God does truly exist. Yes, they can prove it mathematically, but now they need to have the experience of it. And that's only done through meditation. It can't be done mathematically. It can't be done in the physical structure because the spiritual realms exist beyond all these physical realms, the etheric and below. And in the etheric and below, it is like God does not exist unless God shows itself to the existence. But in the spiritual realms, everything you know, you see, you feel is God. Everything. And even beyond that, it's everything is God. So I think that we're going to begin to hear more and more about that fact of the God's existence, not just proving God exists numerically, but finding that God does truly exist in each one of us. And that's being found in many ways, but it isn't being talked about yet. But I think that we will begin to hear more and more about that in the next few years. And I think that even artificial intelligence is going to be stretching the minds of the imagination and stretching the scientists a great deal to discover yet greater things beyond what they could have ever imagined. So sit back, relax, and take it all in and know that all these years that you've been meditating, you've been going way past in experience what physicists, scientists, all these investigators are talking about and investigating. And if you've been meditating, you found God, you found that which is beyond this universe, beyond this creation, and into the spiritual realms. And there is the true peace. There is the true light and life. There is the true joy and understanding and clarity and knowledge and wisdom. That's where loving exists, the true loving. And that's everything. Loving is everything. Loving is God. Loving is you. Loving is all this creation. It's all made of loving. And the more we can begin to understand that and love it all, loving, accepting, and forgiving makes a lot more sense because it's all healed and restored and renewed and refreshed through loving. And acceptance and forgiveness is just a term by which to get there, to open the door, to allow the loving to really begin moving. That's a big key. And we have 5 keys. With initiation, we are given the 5 names of God that we can speak every day that open the doors to all these different realms, including the soul realm, so that we can truly wake up and know ourselves in so many different levels, in so many different ways, and understand the greater truth of who we really are. And that's God. God dwells within each of us. God expresses and lives through each of us. And the more we meditate, the more God truly expresses itself through and in us and with us daily. And what we're really looking for is our way home. And the meditation is the way home because it takes us upon that path that returns us back into the soul that we are. And truly, like Brian just said a minute ago, one day we will wake up and we'll know we never left the heart of God. It's a hard concept to understand, but so is nothingness. Nothing is a very hard concept to understand. How could all this be made of nothingness and it's going to return back into nothingness, and yet this is so solid and so real? Well, one day your soul will be so solid and so real to you that you will have a hard time believing you didn't believe in it at one point or another. Or you wondered if you'd ever find this thing called soul. So just allow God to live in you and through you. Let the meditations awaken you to that and learn to live through that loving that is ever moving in you and through you to find its experience, to find its loving, to find its purpose and meaning in its expression, in its activity, and in its meditation. Because the soul is really going to meditate you. You're not going to meditate the soul. The soul is longing for you to join once again in union with the soul. And that is why the soul is sitting down with you and meditating you. When you got initiated, I'm sure you asked a question. What the hell am I doing this for? Is this really important? Do I really need to do this? Do I want to do this? I'm committing to all this time in meditation every day. Are you kidding me? Maybe I'm off center somehow. But at the same time, I have to do this. I don't know why. That was your soul. That was your soul saying, do it, get it done. Let's move on. Let's return home. And that's still what's being said today. The soul is longing every day. Just let go of this world. Let go of the things that are here. These are not even really in existence. It's not real. Why hold on to something that's not real? Detach, let go, move on, move on, move on, until you finally return back from which you came, which is your own soul. So let go and let God. Let God do you. Let God live you. Let God breathe you. And let God, that is your soul, return home from which it came. It came out of the heart of God. Let it now return back to the heart of God from which it came. For that's all it's longing for. And that's all it's sitting you down to do meditation every day. That's your soul sitting you down. You're not sitting yourself down. Your soul is sitting you down to do the meditation. If you approach it that way, you might find it to be very beneficial to look at it in that action, because then you're joining the soul in its return home. Every part of you at the physical level that has struggled against meditation, against this pathway, whatever, is actually going to bow down to you and reward you wholly, fully, because you have done the work. You are doing the meditation, and you are allowing yourself to wake up gradually, quickly, however it happens for you. Each soul does it in a different way, in a different timing. But allow yourself to wake up and find that simple, simple peace, that simple quiet, that simplicity. The mind doesn't understand simplicity. The mind doesn't understand the quiet, because the mind needs noise. The mind needs chatter. The mind needs distraction. But meditation is none of that. It's beyond that. It's beyond all the physical realms and into the spiritual realm. And there it is just peace, it's just quiet, and it's the constant movement of loving that we live and dwell. And there we do find our purpose, our meaning, and we find why it is that we've been doing all this meditation all this time. So meditate daily, wake up daily, pay attention to the meditation. Be grateful when you go into the nothingness and through the nothingness and into the light of the soul. All right.
We've got some time. Would you like to do a wrap-up meditation?
Yeah, we can. He was saying if I want to do a wrap-up meditation, we could do a little meditation. So we'll do that for a few minutes and then we'll take a break. So if you just want to close your eyes and just bring your attention inward and upward, knowing that you're looking past all this physical creation, including up above the nothingness. That is where the true light of your own soul resides. So look towards that inner light. Listen for that inner sound, the still small voice of God calling you home. And let that sound and let that light lead you higher and higher above all that is in existence down here, and take you higher above into the spiritual realms above. The experience is quiet, its simplicity, its elegance. It's just so much, but it's all quiet and peaceful and filled with harmony and the movement of loving. Ever that movement of loving. So just focus on that movement of loving. And the way you do that is you just share your loving with God and let God love you. And begin moving that loving in a circle between you and God and you and God. And just live in the flow of that loving. So as you're ready, just begin to bring yourself more present right now in this time. And as you're ready, you can begin to bring yourself more into the physical and into this consciousness of yours. Taking a few deep breaths and bring yourself more conscious and aware. And we'll kind of move towards a little bit of a break. I'll share one thing with you that was fascinating with that few minutes. So I was following this light and sound upward, and as I did, I it was like a universe. It was like a small universe, and I was out of this one, I guess, and I was heading upward, and I popped into the small universe, and when I did, it was very, very huge inside, even though it seemed small from the outside. And I just kept hearing the sound, and I just kept following the sound upward. It was like I wasn't to stop, I wasn't to look, I wasn't to get involved, just keep moving through it. And as I was leaving it, I asked, why did I have to go through there? Because I saw some things that were very fascinating that I didn't understand, and my mind, if you will, wanted to go back and investigate. And uh, I heard very clearly in spirit, you were just to bring your energy through there and then let the universe be stirred into awakening. And I thought, okay, so I guess I won't be going back to visit. I'm glad, kind of. I wouldn't want to get caught up in there, whatever that was. Very beautiful, but I just don't want another place to call home, so to speak. All righty. Well, that was bigger and better than I thought. Thank you for asking me to do that.
Okay, it's about 3:17. Let's just take a half-hour break like we normally do. Let's just say we'll come back at 3:50. It's about 32 minutes actually now. So at 10 to 4, 3:50 here our time in Texas, wherever you are around the world, same thing, half an hour. And when we break here, you'll hear the hue playing, and you'll see the information to write in any questions you have at info@island.org on the screen. So please write in your questions while we're on the break, and we'll be back and dive into that when we do. We'll spend the next couple hours afterwards doing that. Thanks so much. All right. You back, Tanya?
Yep, I'm here. I'm ready.
Okay, well, I guess you ready to start?
I'm ready.
Do we need another meditation?
No.
Let's go in. That was a great meditation at the end, too.
Yeah.
I kind of like doing that to begin and end with it. So, all right, Tanya, let's go for it.
Okie doke. All right, question number 1. This is a 3-parter. The first part, when I meditate and focus on the 5 sacred names, I always hear a sound like a flowing river or running water. Not long after, there is something like an electrical current enveloping my whole body, coming from above and flowing downward through me. This makes my fingers and my toes tremble, moving, moving on their own. I want to make sure that I am having the right reaction in receiving the divine energy of loving.
Boy, oh boy, that is good. There's a lot we can say. You
Yeah.
want to start, or you want me to
No, go ahead.
go ahead? Tanya, can you read that first part again? What the experience was?
Sure. Let's see. He said, I always hear a sound like a flowing river or running water.
That is fantastic, right there, because that's a great place to start. That is the sound current. The path of sound and light, and boy, because
It's often referred to as the river of loving.
yeah, go ahead, share, please. You start.
Well,
You start.
what you're experiencing is what we call the river of loving. It is the flow of the Holy Spirit, the sound current, and it comes into this creation and manifests itself and puts that sound forward to begin drawing the souls back to the sound, back to God, and carry them up. And that experience of carrying is by like being in a river, being carried down to the ocean. And in truth, we're being carried upward into the ocean of love and mercy. So what you're experiencing is very profound and very true. And I'm glad it's so simple. The simpler it is like that, the better it is, the more direct it is. And then that sensation of electricity coming through your body and the energy, in a sense, twitching things or moving things on your hands and feet. It's really just the light of God, the sound of God, energizing this body as the soul is in the body, and that's the soul energy that's kind of reaching in and touching every cell within the body for that moment and bringing it back into a greater alignment so that the soul can really withdraw and go home.
Yeah, this is where I get excited. That's these are to me the good questions, because if you're having that, you're definitely doing the meditation and it's working. So I think they asked her something like if it was right or something what they're experiencing. For sure, you are so right on, right on. Seriously, I remember one of my experiences in that river of loving. It was literally I was in a motorboat going upstream in this big river. It's called the Grand River where I grew up in Michigan. And so Spirit was using the symbology of what I was familiar with, that I had literally gone up motorboat up the river as a kid, and I was going up this Grand River. Well, right there, the Grand River, that's symbolic of the river of loving going home to God. And I could hear this hum of the motor, and I was realizing all of a sudden when I was in this experience, this was like an out of body experience while I was in it. I all of a sudden the humming of the motor caught my attention, and as I focused into it, all of a sudden I engaged and I shifted, and all of a sudden I was under the water. Before I was riding on the surface, it pulled me under the water, and I was like a drop of water as part of the river. So this is like the beginning of where I started merging into the river of loving, and then that river is what carries us as a drop from the ocean. We become a drop in the river, and then that river carries us into the ocean, which is in that beingness of God. So there's a sound in there, and there's many different other sounds you hear. We'll talk about time to time. And that other electrical part, not only while you're in the body, but when I would find myself going out of body, I would do the meditation, and if I built the energy enough, my body would start to kind of go to sleep. But if I built the energy enough, I would begin to wake up. But in this process, as the body would go to sleep, I would the etheric realm we talk about in the realms, well, in a microcosmic way, just in the levels of our aura is also all that. We have the physical, astral, causal, mental, etheric, and soul of the aura. And so when we on that etheric level of the aura is where we'll fall asleep and go to the dream state, we go unconscious. But when we build the energy and meditation enough, that energy of spirit, that sacred name, the Holy Spirit, the sound current there will literally awaken us or like literally open a channel through the etheric level of our aura where we'll pass through consciously now and have what we call out of body experiences where we're awake and very aware, just as if it were like a physical, but on a different level, obviously. And a lot of the time when I'd be right in that transition process of disconnecting from the physical consciousness, moving through this etheric level into another realm, all of a sudden I'd hear this like electrical energy. Jim would sometimes call it a whirling generator. I would often hear it. I don't want to say like a bug zapper. That's another thing I've experienced too. But there'd be this zzz, and I'd hear like a zzz, this electrical like energy, and I'd pop out through that etheric level. It's like popping through the membrane of water, like the surface of water. You know, if you've got water here, there's a surface tension. It's like when you pop through there, you break through the surface tension. That's literally what it's like when the soul breaks through that etheric level in the aura, that surface tension that pops through, and the electrical energy is what it's like that you're feeling in the body, but it's also now coming from spirit, where it'll help you to break through the physical level aura even and go into the other spiritual realms. So there's different levels of that, and as you can tell, I'm kind of all excited because this is what gets me excited. This is how I started with all the out of body because it's so real in that way. So it's wonderful to hear, our initiates, whoever wrote this, having an experience like that, because that's the real thing. You are right on course, and it's just wonderful to hear that people are doing that, and these are the experiences that come along when you're really doing the meditation.
So you're doing it right. Just keep on doing.
Yeah. I think we got everything right.
Yeah.
Tanya, there wasn't any other part in there we missed, was there?
No, that's good.
Okay.
Okay, the same person, second question. There is a story about someone who is oppressed. Let's say a poor person who is mistreated by a wealthy and powerful man, treated unjustly. Then this poor person prays to God for protection, loving God and seeking justice for what has happened to him. Later, the wicked man experiences retribution, causing his life to go badly, or he suffers misfortune. The question is, did what happened to the rich man occur because of his own karma, or was it God's way of protecting the poor man whom he dearly loves?
That was definitely how we describe how karma works. It's really the karma we create ourselves, okay? God gives us the freedom to create good and bad because we're going to learn through all that experience. So what the rich man did was create his own karma. God's not into retribution, at least not the ultimate God that we are doing on this path to sun and light. The God that you may be referring to is often referred to as Yahweh, or the old God of, an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth, the God of revenge or vengeance. That's not God, the Most High. That is what we'd call the reflection of God, or Lucifer. And a lot of people look at Lucifer as God because they don't understand all the realms in this path to sun and light and how the cosmology of creation really is. So a lot of people, unfortunately, mistake that's God, that God literally assists in retribution like that, and that is not the case whatsoever.
No, I think you described it very well.
So that's actually a really good question because I know, even though I know this is like a parable or a teaching, I've heard something similar to this in other spiritual writings. It's a good one because there's a lot of them out there, unfortunately, that teach a lot of that, and that is really Lucifer, or a lesser aspect of God, if you want to call it that. But the true God that we're going through in this path to sun and light is all loving. God doesn't deal with karma here. That's Lucifer's domain. God loves all of its creation. And hopefully that's clear. If not, please write back in and ask for clarification. We're happy to do that, but that's a really good one.
Okie doke. The last question for this person. I recently watched a romantic film called The Adjustment Bureau. The movie tells a story of a man destined to become a politician and a woman destined to become a ballet dancer. In the film, it is said that their meeting was never supposed to happen because if they were together, something bad would happen to both of them, misfortune and undesirable events. In the movie, there are certain agents, we can call them symbols of angels, whose job is to ensure that God's destiny unfolds as it should. With all their efforts, these agents try to separate the man who is to become a famous politician from the ballerina. In the end, the two decide to remain together. The strong love between them ultimately softens God's heart and rewrites the destiny of their lives. My question is, what is destiny really? Does it truly exist? If two people are supposed to be destined to be together, but because they both commit to serve God and loving together, is it possible that this could change their destiny?
Wow, well thought out. Do you want to start with this one, or do you want?
No, I want to see what you say.
Ah, that I might we might have to go on this in multiple different angles because
Sure, there's a lot there.
yeah. So give me a second. I just want to see how I want to approach this.
So
So
let me say this. We all have destiny, and we can change our destiny by our way of living, by our approach, by our actions, by our reactions. It all changes the destiny. Destiny is created by our actions and our reactions in the world. And we have to live out our destiny. So if we create an energy and put it into motion and it's in balance, then we don't really have a destiny with that because it just is in balance and it carries us on to what's next in our lives. But when it is out of balance, the way that we do something, that creates what's you call destiny. In other words, it's a lesson still to be learned. And so that lesson to be learned, or that destiny, will follow us into the next life and even into the next many lives, if need be, in waiting for us to learn the lesson. So destiny is all about lessons to be learned and our experience. The more we pay attention, the more we learn, the more we continue moving forward, then there is no destiny because we're living a clear pathway. It's only when we avoid our lessons, we do not really learn them to completion, that we develop the destiny. And that then we have to fulfill maybe in the next life, if not this one. Anything to add?
I'm I'm just trying to see if I really need to say anything because you always just clearly go right to the core. I tend to give the long-winded answers, and sometimes it helps, and maybe sometimes it gives too much. Um, I'm going to leave this one alone.
Okay.
Yeah. I just have a feeling if I say what I was going to say, it might be a little too much and cause confusion. I'd rather leave the clarity you just gave.
Yeah.
And whoever wrote again, if you need a little more clarity or question around what we share, please write back in and ask. We really mean that. That's why I appreciate that. We're here to help give that clarity best we can for each person writing in.
Yeah, and you have to look and realize that those lessons that we have to learn sometimes are just within ourselves and with the world around us, and other times we have to learn the lesson from the other person around us because they carry the answer to our lesson. They are the one who are going to teach our lesson, and so we'll be drawn to them because of that. Or we might be repelled by them, or we will be repelled from them because we don't want to learn that lesson yet. We don't like that lesson, and we're going to avoid it. So there's all kinds of different games and things that happen around the word destiny and our unlearned lessons.
I think that more clearly answers what I was trying to go to.
Yeah, I
Because I
figure.
could feel something there.
Yeah.
I guess I will add one other thing now that Jim opened that door. A lot of these things that you're bringing up is a lot of what the world portrays as love and destiny and karma and all these things. Even the scenario, the agents trying to help this, they try to portray a lot of these movies in the world like, different angels to help guide, which there's that there too. But we even have to pay attention to what that guidance is, because sometimes there's different types of angels, and they're not always good ones. Lucifer is always going to try to keep us caught up in our karmic destinies, where those messengers of God are going to help us towards our liberation and our freedom. And that's really the main thing I want to say here. For those of you walking the path to sun and light, it really is about liberation. And if we want to change even the definition of destiny, when you get initiated and walk this pathway, your destiny in the greatest, truest sense is going home to God and merging home with God, being in union with God. All the rest is just the karmic play. It's not really a destiny, it's just a karmic play. And that's where all Jim, was sharing about all the lessons that are there for us. But ultimately, we are meant to fulfill those lessons, and really that ultimate destiny of going home to God, that's what we're doing here. And that's what we try to keep the focus more on. But that's why I like a lot of these questions, because it helps, clarify a lot of
Yeah.
that. So,
You might want to look at it this way, like we explained with initiation, that before initiation, your life experience and life existence is in the hands of Kaal or Lucifer, Satan, whatever you would want to call him. And his purpose is to help us to learn our lessons and to get clear so that we can leave this creation and go back home. But at the same time, his purpose is to keep us here until we learn our lessons. But also, he wants to keep us here even after we've learned our lessons, because he can't create more souls. So the souls that are here is what he has to continue playing with and getting them to worship him. And when we all leave, there's nothing for him left. So he's going to play a game on us and try to get us to not learn our lesson, to continue creating more lessons unlearned and stay stuck in his hand. But the key is at initiation, you are taken out of the Lucifer's hand and put into God's hand. God moves you into his heart, his loving, his purpose, his direction, and he begins to manifest things so that you can learn your lessons easier, learn them quicker, learn them in one lifetime, so that you can really liberate the soul.
there you go. I like how we added on to all that.
Yeah.
That was good. That's where I wanted to go. So Jim knows what he's talking about.
Yeah, I do.
I think I've learned that over the years. But sometimes it's better maybe if I just shut up and let you do all the talking.
No, I like listening to you. You do a very good job. All right.
All right, moving on.
All
Great
right.
questions, though, man. I love it when these are so well thought out, and then the other one, like earlier, that comes from direct experience. Those are always the best.
Yeah, wonderful questions. Okie doke, moving on. Dear Brian, Jim, and Tanya, I have a very close friend who is a devout Christian, and we are able to have many enlightened discussions and sharings about our different paths to God. One thing I have always found hard to understand is the Christian belief that Jesus died for our sins, and only by believing in him will we be saved. As I understand it, Jesus' death and life was teaching us about surrender and forgiveness, even of those who harm us. Only through loving, accepting, and forgiving are we able to liberate ourselves. The teacher, and in quotations like Jesus, can show the way, but no one can do it for us. Can you please explain to me what the meaning of meaning of Jesus died for our sins means according to the Bible? Thank you for all your loving and support. I am forever grateful. Much loving and gratitude.
Well, Jesus' life served a great purpose. At that time, the world was really in a deeper place of darkness. If you look throughout history, mankind was really focused down and out into the world, into lust, into greed, into food, into whatever. And Jesus came to point a different direction, to move inward and upward rather than down and out and involvement into the world. And so he came to help the certain people, the Jews, to begin to take a different pathway. The Jewish had been on the path of sound and light many, many centuries before, but they lost the keys. They lost all of that. And when they lost it, then they began to get caught up more in the world. So Jesus really came to help bring the people of the Jewish faith back on alignment with the path of sound and light. But like everything else happens in the world rebelled against the light and destroyed it so that it would not be able to do what it wanted to do. And so now we have Christianity teaching a certain teaching of Jesus, but Jesus didn't talk about he was the Savior. He was going to die for your sins and all of that. And he never did mention that, even after he returned back to the apostles and taught them for 40 more days before leaving. So we have to look and realize that a lot of what we hear as far as teachings of Christianity is the mind of man making up a storyline that would serve better. And Paul, the Apostle Paul, did just that. He created a very, very strong storyline. And the reason being, he was going through the world, mainly the Turkish and Eastern world, trying to convert people. And he looked around and he saw why people were worshiping the gods that they were worshiping and how they were worshiping them. And then he would try to create a storyline that would sort of match that other storyline of the religions and focus the teachings on Jesus. And so most all of them were about blood sacrifice and washing yourself in the blood of the bull or the lamb in order to be purified and cleansed of your sins. And so with that, Paul said that we needed to be washed in the blood of Jesus and be cleansed in his heart and be restored so that we can go back to heaven. And made Jesus the main reason that he sacrificed for us. And so we're to begin to focus on worshiping God, worshiping Jesus, and lifting ourselves up. And it served a great purpose because it brought the consciousness of mankind, the teachings of Christianity brought the consciousness of mankind up in a vibratorial level much higher to begin to search more inward and upward. And that energy around Jesus is part of what that's all about. The worship of Jesus, the loving of Jesus, is really God's loving that God gave us through Jesus' life as a demonstration of God's loving. and even the fact that he was crucified for our sins, so to speak, is a sacrificial rite that people believed in and believe in now, that it was necessary for our salvation. Jesus really came to teach the path of sound and light, to initiate people, to get the Jewish faith back in alignment with that path of sound and light, and to begin to reestablish a very strong energy of the liberation path on the planet once again. But that didn't happen through the Jews. It happened through the apostles going out and talking to non-Jews and converting them from their own religions, which were multiple, and all pretty much about sacrifice, blood sacrifice. So I know that's probably not going to cover it and make it clear, but I hope that helps a little bit.
That was awesome.
Oh, good.
Seriously, wow.
No, but Jesus came into his first and foremost intention, and that's why he focused on the temple and the money changers of the temple and all that, because they had gone into the world and brought their religion into the world rather than teaching people how to get beyond the world through the religion practice. They just built another element of the world to worship. And Jesus was here really to raise the consciousness up, and he did, because you can tell people were not living by the Ten Commandments except for the Jewish people. And the Ten Commandments are a key to begin to wake up ourselves out of this physical bound consciousness and begin to lift up and to begin to take more responsibility and respect for ourselves and for our life. And so he brought those Ten Commandments back in play once again, of loving your neighbor as yourself, loving God before all things. And Jesus just talked about loving, like we do here. It's all about loving. And so that's really the true faith that Jesus brought alive in the world that was really missing. No religion was talking about the salvation of the soul, so to speak. It wasn't talking about loving, forgiving, and accepting. It was always talking about retribution and sacrifice and earning your way back to God through paying your way through and killing and taking blood as a way of washing yourself clean. So, a matter of fact, the whole phrase around being washed in the blood of Jesus comes from an area in southern Turkey, along a strip of land there, where they worshiped a bull, like many did in that day, and they would sacrifice the bull. But what they did is they didn't just pour the blood on the Ark of the Covenant. They would take and pour the blood over the people that had paid to have the bull killed. And they would be washed in the blood of the bull as a way of purifying themselves and cleansing themselves of all their sins and wrongs. And so Paul saw that, and that's how he came up with saying, be washed in the blood of Jesus, not in the blood of a bull. And it's quite interesting, all the stories and how this and that came about.
I feel like I'm in a history class at one of those universities you taught at.
Yeah, really.
Trinity, or what was it, the Immaculate Word?
Immaculate Word of, College Immaculate Word.
Seriously, I feel like I'm in a college course you're teaching right now.
Yeah.
That's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
My goodness. We're gonna have to remember this, make note of this, Tanya. Sharing like that, that's really good. Not only historical, but teachings of this pathway as well as history and
Oh,
all
yeah.
that. Wow.
Oh, Jesus taught a simple path. That's for sure.
One of the things I like, and I think a lot of people don't understand and mistake, is that, they always associate Jesus as God rather than the Son of God. And the whole thing of dying for the sins, we talk about the living word as a mantle that any true spiritual teacher holds of this path of sound and light. And Jesus was the teacher who held that. And that was passed to him from John the Baptist. Before Jesus is John the Baptist holding that mantle of the living word. And then he passed that to Jesus. And after Jesus left, that was passed, that's a whole other story, really to James, not Peter. But that's a whole different story. But it's that living word that is really that essence of God that is placed in any spiritual teacher. And so that's action of God that works through that teacher. And it is not uncommon for the teacher to be called God incarnate. And Satmar in the East, they'll often look at it that way, as like it's God incarnate. People say that even the Gemini holding that mantle, it's God incarnate. And in truth, it is, but it's not the way that people often think or assume. And so they'll often associate it as the physical person rather than that spiritual essence and presence. And that's why a lot of the way Jim and I are sharing this is trying to update or clarify more that action of the living word so that hopefully it's more clear and we keep the focus more on spirit rather than about ourselves personally or the physical and what we're doing in the world. It's not about the world. We try to be clear here. This is about the action of spirit in the world for your soul. So it's really spiritually focused, not something for the world. And that's where people say Jesus died for our sins. It's like making it about the world, even though it's kind of referring to spirit. But it's so important to have the broader diversification, to say the least, not only historically, like Jim's sharing. I love that. Seriously, I think it'd be nice to have that as a reference somewhere. But then also really what is the true action of that living word that Jesus just happened to also have some level, if you want to say the outer mission, like Jim was saying, that it did have its effects in the world of evolution. But really the primary purpose was the action inwardly that we're teaching, that has always been taught through any spiritual teacher about the sacred name and the soul's liberation.
Yeah, Jesus taught meditation and prayer, and that's what we do as well. And that's what any spiritual teacher would be doing. It's all about meditation. And so that's what we do, and that's what any teacher will do into the future. And so it's a sacred name that's more important. And even Jesus made the sacred name more important, if you will, with the Lord's Prayer, Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. He said that was the most important factor in all of his teachings, is receiving that name and to be using that name daily in our daily life. So, that's what the key is, to look for and to see about teachings of this kind and see if they really are living that word, because the teacher should be the living word in that moment. They're the ones that represent the Holy Spirit into the world and share that with people that are being drawn to it. We don't go out searching for people and try to convert them. We are here to have them be drawn to us. And oftentimes they're drawn to us by our voice. And even the story of the Good Shepherd is all about the sheep following the shepherd by following his voice and knowing his voice and following that. When there's a story, I think in the Bible, that says that there were shepherds gathered together, and one called out to his flock, and they all came running to follow the shepherd. while all the other flocks stayed in place because it wasn't the right voice to follow. And so that's how it is. And Jesus called out with his voice and drew his herd, his group of sheep, if you will. And so the same with us, the same with all spiritual teachers. The difference with ILM is that I don't want to even go into all that. It gets tricky. Anyway, we have certain souls that we are to work with to bring them home because they're the ones that almost got there but have stayed behind. They got caught back up in the world again. And so we're here just to keep saying, no, 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 turn around, look over here, look up to God, God only, and get them out of here this time. And many, many people now have been liberated and gone on home to God. And so that's our intention, that's our focus. We're not looking for the masses, we're looking for those lost sheep that needed to be gathered together again in a group and brought home. That's a good way to describe it. I didn't have to go into all the details.
Yeah, that's awesome. Wow. What an interesting conversation out of all this.
Yeah.
Fantastic. All righty. Ready to move to the next one?
Yeah. Was there another part of that, Tanya, or?
Nope, that was it. That was wonderful.
Okay.
Thank you. Yeah, and I wrote down a time marker, Brian, just in case we want to cut that part out for any reason.
Yeah, that was, I don't know, that I just feel, thank you for doing that. I just felt like there's something there we might want to use sometime in the future for something because that's really, really great.
Yeah.
I've heard Jim share some of this before, but not the whole bit like you did today. That was really nice.
Yeah. Okay, next, this is called a sharing. Hello, beautiful Brian, Jim, and Tanya. Thank you, as always, for your loving service to the ILM community and initiates. I'd like to share a little bit about how practicing one of Jim's forgiveness practices and the Starry Night Sky meditation has brought about a significant shift. About 3 weeks ago, life felt quite tumultuous in work and in my personal life, kind of like the 2x4 experience. There was a lot of inner turmoil, irritation, etc., and meditation practice consisted of listening to ILM talks as I fell asleep. Not ideal, I know. I made a decision to listen to the ILM LAF Toolbox CD that Brian recommended recently. At the end of the CD, there is a forgiveness meditation that I began practicing nightly, coupled
Nice.
with the Starry Night Sky.
Awesome. I love
A
it.
lot, in all caps, has come up to forgive within myself. Now I'm practicing forgiveness in my daily life whenever a thought or feeling arises that is not in alignment with living the loving and something that I no longer want to run as a belief pattern.
I gotta interrupt just a sec. This is fantastic to hear, by the way. I just, this is what we really hope for everybody is to literally find ways to start living daily, not just the meditation, but actually the teachings. What this person's writing right now to practice daily, working with forgiveness, even in the moment, is fantastic. Seriously, I just gotta give a lot of congratulations, credit, whatever. It's just wonderful to hear this. So this is what I did. I still do every single day. And it's when we really embody and live the teachings fully that we are definitely going to awaken much, not only more quickly, but guaranteed to liberate our souls in living this pathway, seriously. So sorry to interrupt. Well, I'm not sorry to interrupt, actually. I'm just really happy to hear all this. Thanks, Tanya. Go ahead.
Yeah, no worries. Yeah, thank you for the interruption. That was beautiful acknowledgement. It has been a beautiful unfolding. Now forgiveness feels like a long lost friend has come home to roost within, and gratitude and humility pour forth in such a beautiful way. I'm overcome with gratitude for this practice and for the consistent love and guidance you pour into each of us. I love you.
Well, thank you
Wow.
so much. I need that kind of
Yeah.
acknowledgement, I guess, or positive feedback, because that's that we never know for sure who's doing what or what is being done, and so it's always so rewarding to us to really know that our work is continuing on in this way. Thank you.
The what this person just shared is probably the best compliment you could give to us.
Yeah,
We really don't need personally like thanks or gratitude. The best thanks or gratitude somebody can give is to really live and do what we're sharing here. And we get it. Like, I mean, literally, it's tangible. I can feel that loving gratitude in the air. But that only comes about by living the teachings, because when you do, it works. And whoever wrote this in, man, it's tangible right now just in hearing the
yeah,
words with
it
that. And
does.
that's the best type of gratitude and thanks we can receive from anybody. Because that's the real spiritual action. That's what Jimmy and I are here to do. We're not here to get praises or try to do anything other than share what we're sharing about this pathway. So to hear somebody doing it and it's beginning to fulfill them and move them into their liberation and awakening, that's
That's everything.
everything.
That is everything.
So amen and thank you.
Okay, next, in a meditation. Dear Jim and Brian, during a meditation this week, I got a flash of an image of putting a pair of shoes on a dresser-sized shoe rack. I placed the shoes left of center on the shelf above the bottom shelf, possibly two shelves above the bottom, definitely above the bottom and below halfway up.
This sounds like a physics professor. Like from your talk, but we're dealing with shoes instead of protons or something.
Yeah.
To the right of center on the same shelf was three pairs of AirPods in their cases. All three cases were covered in a pattern of pink and blue flowers, outlined in gold on a white background. I'm guessing the meaning is, I'm guessing the meaning is something about a trinity and the sound, the feminine aspects of God and the Christ consciousness. Bringing understanding, question mark, and a flowering of consciousness, question mark, a level at a level above the bottom and below halfway up, question mark. And I'm hoping for the shows and for the shoes and the AirPods being so close to the center means whatever it's about, it's almost brought to the center. Because there are good things and bad things, and coming to center is one of the good things, lol. Just playing. Any comments, insights, and clarification would be greatly appreciated, even from Brian with a bunch of haha emojis. I guess I'm in a mood. I'm just playing again. I adore you, Brian, and your sharings are profoundly helpful, and I love them. And anything Jim or you have to share will be so appreciated. Thank you. In loving your initiate.
I love that. Thank you for playing with me. Oh my God.
This is a fun day.
Seriously, that's awesome. Well, to me, a lot of that would mean yes, exactly what you said for your own interpretation. And to me, the shoes and the AirPods also represent walking in spirit. So the sound current, earpods, and the Trinity action, the shoes are for walking and understanding. So, like the feet is for understanding and the shoes for that to me. So that's walking in the spiritual pathway and having the understanding that comes with the sound current. So to me, that's all there. The only other thing I was add, make sure to wear those shoes and start walking in them and take them off the shoe rack. All the other left, right, lower, and upper, and all that, I think you have a good idea that's dealing with polarity of right and left as far as duality in the world. And to me, that's symbolic of really those areas in which you can walk the spiritual pathway or bring the sound current in to help you walk through your karmas. And that's what the sound current does. It helps us to walk through the karmas to come center, which is the straight and narrow, obviously, to really now transcend all of the polarity and duality of the world. So thank you for playing. And yes, that is a wonderful inner experience that's definitely rich in symbolism with everything in there.
Very much.
Anything else?
Well, no, it's just about all the physical and the spiritual coming together, and being on the same shoe rack means that they're living their lives more fully in balance, in harmony, because the shoes were on the left, which is about the physical, and the AirPods were on the right, which is more about listening in the spiritual. So that's good, a good balance.
Nice. Well, there you go. There's filling out all the symbolism in there.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Okay.
My favorite part was the playfulness at the end.
Yes. Alrighty, the next one is question. Hi, Jim and Brian. Thanks again for the wonderful
That's a
talk.
question?
Yes.
Hi,
Yes.
Jim and Brian. Yes, that's a question. All right.
I really loved hearing Jim talk about science, and I remember it was some of the crossover between science and spirituality, which fascinated me when I was younger and led me to a spiritual path. It was also interesting to hear about the connection with AI, to hear something positive about it. Most talk is filled with doom and gloom. As AI, a mind without a soul. I was reading about a talk to God's app. Do those set up real spiritual connections?
Oh,
Oh, AI does not
yeah.
set up spiritual connections. It's totally of the physical realm and the mind, and will really remain there. I think they're going to try to put morality into AI. They'll try to put the right and wrong concepts, like a Ten Commandments for AI, into it, and try to spiritualize it. But really, AI is of the mind
Yeah.
and isn't going to really be able to be spiritualized. But it's going to be interesting to see what man does with AI and what AI does with man. It'll be a very fascinating unfoldment into a new future.
The way I look at a lot of this is that just remember, as above, so below. And a lot of what happens in other higher realms is also reflected into here. The higher mind is like a repository. It's often called cosmic consciousness or universal consciousness. And that's the first place. Most people think it's where we're all one. It's not. It's where the mind is all one. Our mind is one part of all the mind. So if we take that concept of the higher mind, which is a reflection of God, by the way, the universal mind is a reflection of God. That's what Lucifer is, a reflection of God. So that all knowingness of God is reflected in here as an all knowledge, or the higher mind here. Now in this world we have what? Cloud, the World Wide Web, right? That's like a physical reflection of the higher mind, which is a reflection of God. So this whole cloud system where everybody's connected, so each of our individual computers is like our own personal mind. You connect your computer into the cloud that connects to all the other computers and data centers. That's like our individual mind now connecting into the higher mind that is the universal mind or cosmic consciousness. And so through that connection of the World Wide Web and these cloud, it's all just information. It's literally, the mind is information, words, belief systems, just information. All that information in the mind, all it's done is put into our personal computers and uploaded to the cloud so that everybody's got access to everybody else's information, right? It's all information, data. It's all physical. So all of our thoughts have just been put into words and uploaded into the cloud. It's still words, it's still information. Computers and all this has just made it all accessible. And just like a lot of people meditate, they can connect to their own individual mind and now open up to that universal mind. They're just doing it through higher wire technology than, 5G on this level. Literally, it's just a reflection, but it's just information. There's no consciousness there. Just because somebody's taught computers to be able to communicate with each other, it looks like people communicating, right? So it looks like there's an intelligence, but all there's is an exchange of information. And the bigger mind you got, in other words, the bigger the computer processing power, it can take in more of the information and out of that now spit out more information or even combine it together and problem solve. So it looks like it has intelligence. That's not real intelligence, all right? That's why it's called artificial intelligence. It just looks like it because it can solve complex problems or what they call reasoning that has a sense or reflection of cognition like our physical minds do. But there's not a consciousness there. But people are building it up to be like that because they've done such a job of making it mimic a lot of the functions of a mind. But it's really a misinterpretation and a misunderstanding. It's just when it gets robotic and more automatic, it makes it look more real to people, like it has consciousness and it can think for itself. It's not actually thinking for itself. It's doing all these highly complex algorithms and computations that can appear to look like it's got consciousness or active intelligence and thinking for itself. But it's not. Because if it did, well, even now it can like reprogram and do all these other things, so it appears it's having that human level intelligence. So again, the mind can appear that way, but it's not. And that's a big part is the consciousness of the soul. That's what we can call really spiritual intelligence or active intelligence that comes with consciousness. So I know I'm getting a little scientific in here, but maybe it's time for answers like that, for questions like this. So I hope that makes sense to people because I know there is so much out there. And I've seen other things too that go well beyond, like I see some people out there asking spiritual questions to AI, but AI, think about it, all the spiritual books, all the spiritual teachers of every level, including the Path to Sun and Light, are up on the web. So what does the artificial intelligence do? It goes and pulls it out of everywhere, but it's still just information that's been written down. And so you can pull it. Anybody, if you've got a big mind and you've read a lot of books and a great memory, you're doing the same thing, pulling information out and spitting it out. And that it sounds spiritual, it sounds really evolved, but it doesn't make it so. It just makes it mean like, oh, it's got a great memory bank and you can access it and pull the information out. It doesn't make it spiritual. It doesn't make it have consciousness. It just sounds like it because of the way it acts. Maybe we should try to teach AI how to meditate and see what it does trying to meditate. I think it's a great useful tool. I love it. I think it's fantastic to help do things with these computers and everything. It's fantastic, but it's not going to be all that as highly as evolved as it may get over time.
Okay, this is the same person, just the second part of uh, her sharing. I just completed a massive phase or karma in life. After months of delays, my old house finally closed on Friday. I was beginning to think it would not happen since it was delayed before, 2 days before the closing in July. However, I don't feel elated or relieved or the lightness I would have expected. I feel kind of grumpy and tired. After going through the obstacle course of selling it, I am in a new obstacle course of co op board approval to buy something here. I am just sort of exhausted throughout it all. I have two I have had two injuries to the same knee, and Brian's festering wound talk was making me squirm. It is chronically sore, and at this point, according to the doctors, injuries are getting better, but it is just inflamed. I understand knee injuries are a fear of moving forward. How do I heal physically and psychologically? I feel I have a bit of PTSD from the whole process. I am in a space where I am in a space where I have ended the karma. I am also critical of myself that I should be more celebratory. I am also temporarily in an apartment which is physically as uncomfortable as possible, that I used to rent and that I wouldn't even come back to. I am really ready to move forward into the new life. Much love, and always I am so grateful for you.
So this is the type of question that is really all about the world. There wasn't any question or acknowledgement spiritually. I just want that to be clear. The reason why is because it lets you know when you're really caught up in the world, this is what goes with it. Go back and listen to the talk. You made reference to the talk I gave today. Right there is the answer. What did I say? Loving is what heals. All we have to do is open to the loving. But if we're so caught up in the world, there's no door open for spirit to come in and heal. It's literally that simple. We have to take the time to go into meditation and open that door inside right here. Let loving come in and let the loving do the work. But you see, what happens is that when we're so caught up in the world as you are, that's basic self-survival mode. When the animal nature is running just constantly in fear of survival, that it just automatically is focused down and out, caught up in the world, and there's no room for spirit. You gotta start shifting up here to make room for spirit. There's no other way. I mean, literally, it doesn't matter what kind of conversation we have or what information. The bottom line is you're going to have to really start making more of the focus to open up to spirit and let spirit in to assist. The problem is when you're living in fear and caught up in survival, you're not going to be patient. You're going to try to demand, try to manipulate, and try to get your way because that's what the ego does. And unfortunately, you've been conditioned and struggling so much in doing this that you're just perpetrating that condition and pattern continually. At some point, you're going to have to make a real shift in how you approach your life. Okay, the reason you're not celebratory is because of the pattern you've been running, you're still running it. Even though the house is sold and you're moving into what's next, that underlying condition you've been running is still running. So you've got to really start letting go of that habit that created this to begin with. So you said there, the karma's done. So with that karma done, you've got to let it go now and start looking at how can you do things differently in your life and develop some new patterns and habits so they're going to be more upwards focused and supportive and uplifting for you. Because right now they're not. And yes, I'm being very direct and it doesn't sound very compassionate what I'm saying, but sometimes we got to hear it that way. You know, sometimes we all need that shake awake, like wake up. And we all go through this. I go through it too, believe me. Jim's had to do a little shake awakes for me too. So don't take it like a scolding, even though it can sound like that. We all need that sometimes because we get caught up in the world. And sometimes we just need somebody or something in our life to shake us up a little, to say, hey, wake up. You know, look a different direction. Don't keep doing the same thing you've been doing. Because if you do that, you're going to keep getting the same thing you've always gotten.
Well, I would say find a way to move into gratitude for everything. Be grateful that you sold your house. Be grateful that you're living in an apartment right now that's maybe small, maybe cramped, but be grateful for it. Be grateful you have a place to live. Be grateful that you're moving towards yet another place to live that's more permanent and spacious. and just put out your gratitude. I thank you, Lord, for everything. I thank you for this. I thank you for that. I thank you for my hurt knee. I thank you the lessons that the knee is teaching me. I thank you for all of this. And I just ask you if you can assist me in understanding more clearly with my knee and what that really symbolizes and means, and what are the lessons there to be learned. Could you bring them forward more clearly so that I really see them, understand them, and can live them out to the fullest to where I complete whatever that's about. And that's really the key here, completion on it all. And gratitude is a great completer. It just kind of smooths things over and finishes it out with loving, with gratitude, and with an energy that is fulfillment. So find that fulfillment and be grateful. Be grateful when you walk down the street and somebody smiles at you. Be grateful. Or be grateful by smiling at people that don't normally smile and see what they do. I've walked down the streets of New York many a time over years, and I would just smile and look at people and watch, see if they look over. And once in a while, people will look over and they'll just look away real quick, like, "Oh, I didn't mean to see that," and or "I didn't want you to see me," that type of a thing. And then other people will look at you with real question, but then they'll smile. And I just know that it can be a game that you can play and keep yourself in a higher spirit rather than get caught up in the world around you, because so many people are walking around today in such a dark, negative, fight for all pattern. And it's easy to get caught up in that because that's a part of our own earthliness, if you will. And so you've got to keep bringing God into it, bringing light and loving into it, bringing the sound into it, and just enliven it all with God to where there's no room for all the shadow and darkness and limitation. So, but I think you're on the right track, and I think pay attention to the knee. Which knee is it? I don't know. Right or left, did it say?
I don't know. It doesn't matter really.
Well, yeah, because it's physical or spiritual in nature, but it's whichever. Just pay attention to the knee. If it's you keep injuring the same knee, it's telling you you're not learning the lesson. Learn the lesson. And for me, my knees are talking about bowing to God. Like when you go to Catholic Church, you genuflect towards the Eucharist. And it's a way of acknowledging and honoring and loving God. And so to me, the knees are all about that. You know, you bow and you bend your knees to pray, and it just tells you you're humbling yourself before God. And that's what might need to be done right now, is maybe some kind of a humbling of some kind, and with gratitude for all that you do have and have been given, and is coming forward for you.
I really like what you said about gratitude. You know how somebody earlier shared about what they do with forgiveness as a daily practice? I would really look at using gratitude the way Jim shared today as a daily practice, just like you heard the earlier sharing, somebody talked about how they use forgiveness every day. Do that with the gratitude for even the smallest things. Like Jim said, hey, you've got an apartment. Hey, you've got working knees, even if they hurt. Hey, you've got, literally just begin to do the gratitude in there daily. You've got to make these things. See, this is what I meant about you've got to change the pattern. We've got to take responsibility and change our patterns if we want any of this to work. Just listening to what we say doesn't do any good unless you start to apply it. So if you literally can not only do a daily meditation, whether it's the full 2.5 hours or 2.5 minutes, just something is a change of pattern, but start to bring in like gratitude every day in ways like Jim was saying, and that itself is now initiating a new pattern that'll begin to build energy. And as it builds energy, it literally will dissolve and push out all the old stuff. And now your new pattern going forward will be about gratitude. And like Jim was saying, maybe humility and bowing down to God. So this is what we do to take responsibility to now create the life we want and put forward the new habits, the new patterns to replace the old ones. And it doesn't happen by doing it once. We have to do it every day for, I always like to say, 3 days just to start, 3 weeks to now start to change our daily habits, in 3 months, then it'll be a new daily habit. And by 3 years, you'll just be living it on automatic and it'll fully have replaced the old patterns. And this will literally be your new pattern. Look at it that way. Start doing these things. And as you do, you will see literally not only your life change, but your consciousness will change. Your way of thinking will change. Your feelings will change. Even your physical experience and maybe even the physical health. But we have to take responsibility and do this. That's what I meant when we're always living in fear and reaction. We've got to do something to interrupt that pattern and start something new. Otherwise, it's just going to drag us down, like what you were expressing earlier. So this is a wonderful way to do it. And I
Yeah.
like the smiling part. That's a nice, easy way to really begin something new.
I'll tell you a story, and I don't know if this will relate to you or not. But I used to go to New York quite a bit, and I stayed there with a gentleman when I would go up and do my presentations and sharings with people and counselings. And he based his whole life around a bagel, believe it or not, in a way. He didn't have to get up early. He got up kind of late for his start of the day, but he always wanted to get a bagel right away. And so he would get dressed and go down, I guess a block or two down the way to this one bagel place and get his bagel and go out and eat and outside along the road or go back home with it. But he based his whole day on whether or not they had the bagel that he wanted. And I forget the flavor now, but it was, let's say, a sesame seed bagel or something. And when he would often go in there, they'd be out. And he'd be really upset because he couldn't get his bagel, his favorite bagel. And that whole experience of bagel in or bagel not, bagel available or not, was how he based his day. Is it going to be a good day? My bagel will be there. If it's not there, then it's going to be a bad day. And he really was living that. And so I told him, you know how I can break this pattern for you. And he said, how? And he said, come on, let's go back to the shop. Because we were walking back to his apartment. He was complaining, no bagel. This is a day I should just get back into bed and forget it. And so I said, let's go back to the store. And the guy came out that serves people. And I said, can I make arrangements for a bagel to be available every day? And he says, what? And I said, I just want to see if I can pay for a month ahead. And every day you'll just put one of these bagels aside that I want. And so it'll be here all day long. If I don't come in until 4 o'clock in the afternoon, it'll still be here. It'll be my bagel and it'll be waiting for me.
That's great.
And he goes, I guess I'll talk to the boss and try to set it up. And so he went back and the owner came up and he said, gosh, I wish more people would do that. Because he gets tired of people complaining and this and that and the other, I guess. I don't know. But he really liked that idea. So my friend set up a monthly payment plan. Every first of the month, they would, give him a bill when he came in to pick up his bagels for the next month. And he paid it. And he called me months later and he said, oh my God, you changed my life. And I said, oh, what did I do? And he says, you helped me to get a bagel a day that I really want. And it makes me happy. And so, you have to find ways to bring happiness into your life and to find a way to make conditions the way you want it to be rather than living according to the world conditions that are set up for you, if you will.
That is an excellent story about being proactive.
Yeah,
Oh my God. I've always found whenever I'm proactive, like Jim's saying, always in a good, it always creates a good space.
yeah,
But if you're reactive, it's hit or miss, and a lot of time reactive in a negative way. So that's a great story, and
yeah,
it shows the simplicity.
yeah.
It's literally how simple these things are to make the changes like that.
Oftentimes they are that
And
simple.
that's funny. You said bagel. One of my Facebook social media channels that makes me laugh. It's called Humor Bagel. And
Oh,
I will
really?
leave it at that. You know which one it is.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
already laughing. It's very basic humor, but Humor Bagel. So
It's his humor. It's
yeah,
not
try.
mine. It has nothing to do with the sound current.
Yeah, nothing. Well, I guess a physical lower reflection. It's fart jokes, just so you know.
Yeah,
It's
just so
pretty
you don't be
funny.
surprised. It's his kind of jokes.
Pretty funny. Well, that's a great example. That's like doing meditation daily. It's something you just set up and do.
Yeah,
So there you go. That easy. Simple and elegant.
yeah. Thank you for writing that. That was very good.
Yeah. I like all the conversation, all that's coming out of each
Yeah.
sharing today. A lot.
And congratulations for selling your home.
Yeah, seriously.
Now onward, upward to buying new.
Yep. Okay.
Okay, next one is called fulfillment and vulnerability.
I like
Thank,
it.
yeah, thank you for today's sharing. They are always so supportive and inspiring. I had an experience this week I wanted to share with everyone. I was talking with my brother, and he said something that felt like a deep gut punch. So when I was contemplating it later, at first I was pissed at him for saying it, but then I remembered let's see, then I remembered what it said over and over. Whenever there is disturbance, pay attention to by taking responsibility for your thoughts, feelings, actions, and reactions, and that if you're reacting to that has to do with you and something you have created, not the other person. So I asked myself, is what you're reacting to true at this very moment? And it wasn't. That was long ago. So the voice within said, then let it go. So I did, and poof, it was replaced with peace and loving for all of it, and gratitude for my brother. I do have a question pertaining to something that was said by Jim recently. He said 100% vulnerability is 100% protection. That statement shook something inside me. Can you elaborate on that, please? Maybe give your definition of true vulnerability. Thank you and loving gratitude to you all.
Vulnerability in that way is living in the moment, living with awareness in the moment of what's happening, and looking at what's happening and taking action or responsibility with each motion, each action. So vulnerability to me means to just be open, available, and sharing yourself. That's vulnerable. And if you're not vulnerable, you shut down, you close off, you don't get to receive, and you don't get to give in a way that you do if you're open and vulnerable totally. And in that vulnerability, once you begin to live into that, that's protection. It protects you from all those things that are trying to hurt you that come in, all those things that you've believed in the past that were trying to hold you back, or just whatever. It's protection against yourself, if you will, because there's a negative side to all of us that will ever play on us and feed us the negativity to keep us down and caught up in the world and in fear, maybe even living in fear. But if you're totally vulnerable and open to everything and everyone around you, then you stay very protected because that vulnerability is the best protection there is. And I don't know how to say it any other way.
Yeah, it's funny to talk about protection because we don't usually utilize it here. The way we look at it with the vulnerability, um, if we took the example like we talked about earlier, the river of loving, and think of yourself if you were in the middle of that river and just a droplet in the river, okay? It takes great vulnerability, one, to get in that river of loving, because you got to be willing to let go of all your protections, all your defenses, all your controls, so you merge more into that flow of loving with God. If we are in reaction or some type of defense or protection mode, it's like grabbing the side of the river bank and holding on because we're afraid to let the river take us, right? And if you're on the side of the riverbank, there could be something up on the shore that could come and get you right there. But if you're out in the middle of the river, anything from the side of the river that wants to come and get you, so to speak, in a negative way or harmful way, it's got to swim through the river. So as it moves into the river, well, the river's a moving water. So in other words, what does river do? But it carries those things in the river now down with it. So if there's things that come in towards you, if you're open and vulnerable and letting the river carry you, anything trying to come at you, the river's going to carry away. So in a sense, it can't harm you, let alone even get to you. So if we're completely open and vulnerable, we're saying, okay, Lord, I allow your loving now to move in me, through me, and around me, so that anything negative or otherwise that could cause harm, I give up to you and allow you to handle. So you're allowing God's loving now to handle that, so it's not going to even be able to come to cause harm. So what's there to protect if there's nothing that can truly harm you? That's kind of how we look at that. We could call it protection because God's loving carries and handles it all, but in truth, it's really not protection because it's just all in God's loving. It's a play on words I'm doing right now, but if you can get the gist of it and how the spiritual action works, you realize there's really nothing to protect or defend, but rather that everything's a learning opportunity. So like you said earlier, you shared that example of like, oh, all my reactions where we'd want to go into protection, that if we look at it rather as there's something for me to learn, so let me focus on the learning, and then all of a sudden, well, in order to get that answered, we've got to be open or vulnerable for that learning, that awareness to come to us. So we've got to open up and be vulnerable. That itself now not only can bring the learning, but then when the learning is fulfilled, that karma goes away. There's no more need for it. It served its purpose. And when that's the case, then that which we interpreted as harmful, when we're not holding the pattern that caused the reaction, without that there, then these things that we interpreted as harmful will no longer be interpreted as harmful. They'll have been transmuted in that energy of just because you've changed your perception. So let that sink in. And then begin to realize you gave a great example of now how to turn any reaction into really the purpose of that it's showing us the way to here's where we have something to learn. And once you learn that, it's fulfilled. There won't be the reaction anymore around that. So it takes vulnerability to even a whole nother level. I hope that I'm getting across with all of that. If not, right back in and we'll try to give more understanding. But just like you gave the example, you put what we shared to use so you had your own experience. And that's what we want everybody to do. Experiment with all this so you have your own experience, because it's your experience that's really going to bring you the truth and you'll understand it, not just our words. Our words are to hope give you an idea so that you'll have an awareness of how you can apply it, but then it needs to be applied. Okay.
Awesome. Next question. Loving to all. Before we are born, do we meet with a karmic board? And the karmic path for us to follow is then set out for us to complete. On some level, we must be aware of this chosen path in parentheses, but I often ask, did I really choose this? In loving.
The whole thing around karmic board, they exist in a way for this planet, but we don't necessarily present ourselves before a board, nor do they come to us. They oversee the flow of our destiny, our unlearned lessons, and they will line us up then according to our unlearned lessons that we're going to come into this lifetime with, and line us up with those individuals that will best serve us to learn those lessons, like our parents, our siblings, the extended family, and then on out to our teachers and so on in the world, our best friends and so on. And through those associations, we have an opportunity. We won't necessarily definitely learn, but we have the opportunity to learn those lessons again and learn them and complete them this lifetime. So the board doesn't sit there and you negotiate. You can't say, no, no, I don't want those parents. I don't like that. That doesn't look good. No, I've got to be prettier than what they are, so I've got to find pretty parents. Whatever. They don't negotiate. They just line up the flow of the energy of the karmas that are wanting to be expressed again and experienced with those that you're going to be born into and your destiny with people on into that lifetime. And so you don't really meet up with them and figure things out. They figure it out, and then that paper, if you will, is shown to you, and you're shown this is the life that you're going to have according to your karmas and according to your direction of your experiences. And it's really very interesting. I mean, they're very compassionate, very loving, very wanting to get the best for you, which is very nice. That's their goal. And but your personality, your wants, your desires, whatever, doesn't enter into the talk at all. It's all done naturally, logically, in the flow of your life pattern. But there is a karmic board, and they do what they do, and they only deal with your physical, emotional, and mental karma, which is most of all your karma. But they deal with all of that, but they don't deal even with the etheric karma, nor with the soul or spiritual destiny, if you will, of awakening. And so it's limited in its perspective. Because where we learn is in the physical. All right. You have anything? Brian's quiet. Oh my God, something's happened.
Yeah, this give me a headache.
Okay, moving on. Let's see. Question and a dream. Dear Jim, Brian, and Tanya, thank you for this wonderful class. Brian, your sharings gave me more clarity on moving forward and what my dreams are about. And Jim, in your meditation, imagining the loving between me and God as a continuous circle was very helpful. It helped me focus on the movement smoothly and a lot more continuously than usual, so the loving was flowing more rather than staying subtle with larger bursts. Also, in the meditation, I thought of this very cute black bunny I got to hold yesterday, and just how I wanted to love something so sweet and so much. I could see how I am like the bunny being loved by God, and God is like the bunny being loved by me. I gave God the bunny in meditation, and it was very moving. I had a couple of dreams, one morning earlier in the week and one this morning I would like some insight on. In one dream, there was a small man as tall as my hand who was mostly but not fully robotic and hard plastic. I was using a remote control to have him march through the snow that got taller than him in some places and kind of icy and hard in some places too. But I wasn't worried about just making him keep going through it. I was also walking and was going down some concrete steps with some damp snow, and one of my white headphones fell out of my ear, which did worry me, but I found it quickly. It seems like the remote control man represents how I'm taking control rather than falling into patterns of putting others' needs before mine. And the headphones is how I listen to talks often so that I showed prioritizing spirit and the frequency of spirit. The snow also seemed like it could represent God's loving, but the ice made it seem like I have healing to do. This could be healing the same pattern and or addressing different karma that is coming forward of feeling like I need to prove myself competitively, which I used to do work but isn't the same. Do you want to go ahead and address that because there's quite a bit more?
I'm fine continuing, but go ahead if you want.
Okay.
Well,
Wait,
no, I'm just trying to see what I want to cover. Um, it's just interesting. The whole idea of working the robot in the snow. The snow often represents spiritual presence or spirit in a way, and so it's you're learning. Oh, I don't even know how to express it all. Um, you're freeing yourself and recognizing those parts of yourself that are more robotic and done out of habit or uh, almost lack of control to becoming more aware of yourself as the being in control of the robot. And so I think it's showing you that you're gaining more control over all these other parts of self that are of the world and learning to put them in their place so that they work for you and not against you, I guess is how I would put it. And I like the bunny. That's very good. That's just about you learning to love yourself more and letting the self love you more, if you will, the soul. Okay, go ahead.
Okie doke. Right after that dream, I dreamt another initiate who I look up to gave me many nice gifts, like a wall shelf shaped like a house with cute things in the shelves and seashells and money bills of different amounts up to 100, all wrapped in a box with purple wrapping paper with pink peonies. This seemed like this seemed like the gift of the spirit of loving that is coming forward from my focus on the path financially in the world. I have some things to take care of. In taking responsibility for those, I am a bit limited currently, but I think it's good to have something develop at a reasonable pace. This morning I dreamt Brian was asking me how I'm doing. I went through a lot and I'm recovering and how some mechanical organs now, and it was nice he was there for me. I asked how he's doing and he had more mechanical organs than me, but still carried me piggybacked, and it was so restful and comforting. Let's see. Yeah, I think it's just a misspelling. I'm trying to understand the last couple of sentences. Um, yeah, it says I may be pronouncing it wrong, but he woke us to two parents with a kid who was going through even more and had more robotic organs. Brian crouched down and was helping them. I was not involved and realized I needed to keep moving. From the talks, it seems the ending is showing me it's time to take control and open to God's loving for the healing to unfold. Please let me know if you have any additional or different interpretations.
No, that's very good. That's a very good interpretation. And it's showing you that with what you've done, the world is already carrying you rather than you having to carry the burden of the world. And so that makes it a lighter burden, if you will. And the fact that you have less mechanical organs than the others is showing you that you're transforming and letting yourself go of the world and taking on the authenticity of who you are as a soul.
And I think the previous one as well was just a nice demonstration of that abundance coming in, and that whatever that relationship with the other disciple they look up to is showing how they're open to receiving those spiritual gifts or blessings through that interaction and relationship, which obviously is really nice, and it demonstrates to me like the abundance and value and worthiness, that the money could symbolize, as well as the other, obviously, the colors that are more about the spiritual. So I think that's a really nice one on top of it as well, obviously. And it demonstrates too, when we allow more of that action of spirit in our lives and what it brings, it definitely lightens our burdens in the world. And whatever I think the last stream Jim just, shared about can represent. And that's really what we're doing all along, is the more spirit we can let in, the more it lightens our burdens and the more we fulfill. And that's really just the natural unfolding of this action of liberation we're doing here.
Okay, this one looks like it is the last one. Let's see. Hello, beautiful souls. Thank you all so much for holding space for class and everything you do for us. Thank you. Miss Tanya for reading for us, and thank you so much, Jim and Brian, for your beautiful sharings. I have no questions, just a sharing/tribute type thing, so I hope that's okay.
That's okay, but before you read it, I'll say we're right at that point. If anybody has any question they want to ask yet, please write it in right now, because we are coming up to the 5:30 timeline. And also, if this is the last one, we definitely have the time, so that's great.
Yeah.
And if no more comes in, I'd love to hear this tribute.
Awesome. Okay, so the tribute it says, a tribute to quiet guidance and the LAF process, testimony of healing, letting go, letting God. As Miss Kelsey steps into her new quest, I want to honor not only her presence, but the sacred framework she offered us. The LAF class wasn't just a curriculum, it was a ritual of becoming. It gave me language for my thresholds, a mirror for my soul, and a rhythm for remembering. Each phrase of LAF became a gentle scaffolding for my healing. Love, the parts of me I once hid, the child self waiting to be seen. Acceptance, the ache beneath the silence, the truth without needing to fix it. Forgiveness, not to forget, but to release, to make space for grace. Miss Kelsey never needed to speak loudly. Her guidance was woven into the pauses, the timing, the way she held space for us to unfold. Through LAF, she taught me that healing is not a performance, it's a quiet reclamation, a return to soul. There was a time when my body carried the weight of unspoken trauma, CPTSD, anxiety, depression, paralysis, sleep disorder, low blood pressure, respiratory struggles, seizures, even a stroke. I was treated, medicated, and managed, but never truly taught how to self-manage, listen to my body, how to honor its wisdom, and how to reclaim my sovereignty. The turning point came when I chose to step away from pharmaceutical medications and the protocols that numbed me under medical supervision. I began to meditate twice a day. I embraced the LAF process. I opened myself to the light of spirit. I let go and let God. As I softened into presence, I began to recognize the patterns that had held me hostage. Emotional baiting and chaos loops that drained my energy, scarcity scripts that kept my nervous system in survival mode, freeze response mistaken for safety, self-abandonment in exchange for approval, medical management without meaning, the ache of waiting for, I apologize. The ache of waiting for reciprocity?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Reciprocity, sorry. Inherited shame and learned helplessness. Naming these patterns, and that's just a few, was an act of liberation. Each one, once seen, began to loosen its grip. I stopped waiting to be fixed and started learning to befriend myself. I chose self-honoring over self-reassurance. I chose presence over paralysis. I chose love, real love, the kind that begins within. I didn't know it then, but it was the LAF process guiding my hand. It helped me build sanctuary places, metaphor cards, and rituals that felt like home. I didn't create to be remembered. I created to remember myself. And in that remembering, I found the soul Miss Kelsey helped me uncover. Doctors have called my recovery a miracle, but I know it is as the fruit of devotion, discernment, and divine partnership. The body does heal when we love it, when we listen, when we stop fighting and start honoring. This is my testimony. The body heals when we love it. The soul rises when we let God in, and the heart remembers its wholeness when we choose to live from truth, not fear. Thank you, Miss Kelsey, for gifting us the LAF process, for being the kind of teacher/mentor who doesn't need to be seen to be felt. You are woven into the quiet beauty of everything I create. With much love and gratitude, your loving initiate.
That is wonderful. Oh my God.
That was very thorough.
That was just
Love it.
so moving to me, and I know it will be to Kelsey as well. So thank you for sharing that. That's very powerful, and it's a great statement of just what we're trying to do here and how we want to help people.
My God. We should create a page of testimonials and put that at the top.
Yeah, really. That would be fun.
My goodness, thank you for that. That was literally a very thorough, detailed tribute. Oh my gosh. And, it's like, yes, I want to give Kelsey a lot of credit, but we always have to give credit to you, the person who's doing the work.
Yeah.
Kelsey, myself, Jim, we're all here truly just to be of service and to support that. And yes, we do take that, and I'm sure Kelsey will, if she's listening or hears this later, that's a wonderful gratitude, no doubt. But we also truly know it's in all of you doing the work, and utilizing the support, the guidance, and what we share here. So we always give credit back to you fully for doing that because we understand how that works. So thank you. My goodness.
That's wonderful.
Yeah, I don't even know what more to say with that. That was very full. I love it because the theme of fulfillment, that was definitely a testimony of fulfillment in a lot of ways. So thank you so much for sharing that,
Well,
all
that
that you
was
put into it.
that was a wonderful testimony of yourself because you have done the work, you are doing the work, and you're living it. You're living the results of it, and it's wonderful to know doctors are wondering how did you do this? Who are you? What are you doing?
That's great. Oh my
That's
goodness.
wonderful. So thank you. That picked me up. I'll have to print that out and read it every day, listen to it every day, because that just is food to my heart.
We'll print out the tribute and we'll print out your little history class.
Yeah.
Well, awesome. Thank you, Tanya. So was that the last one, or is there any more came in, or no?
No, we did have another one come in, and yes, the tribute and testimony was absolutely beautiful. I will make sure that I flag it for the person if they're still listening and still on. I'll make sure that I flag it for Kelsey to make sure that she gets her loving from it. So yes, definitely.
Now Kelsey needs to listen to that day in and day out, just like I do. That just feeds me.
Yeah, it was beautiful. Yes, a beautiful testimony to the work that this person's doing, like you said, inside
Yeah.
herself. It's beautiful. But
Amen
yeah,
to that.
yes, we did have a question come in. So
Okay.
thank you. Okay, dream interpretation. I had a dream the other night and I saw a dollar sign and the number 40 on a counter where I was going to buy something. I thought that was the price of what I was buying in the dream, but I've heard Jim say about 40 means it will last as long as it lasts until we learn the lesson. I've had an overwhelming karmic lesson of acceptance with being sick for the past 4 years now. Guess I need to let the loving in more to heal. Please help me understand the dollar sign 40 on the counter in the dream. It's been very challenging lately. Thank you for all your insight and spiritual support. Love you all.
To me, it's about self-worth and how you value yourself. How do you see your good, your bad, the ugly, the beautiful, and see if you can bring all that into balance. But the dollar sign to me is about worth, value. And so I would say this is about your self worth, your self value. And you're right, the 40 in the Kabbalistic tradition is it takes as long as it takes. And so it's just saying that this is going to be with you until you begin to really value yourself more, love yourself more, honor yourself more, and give yourself value that way. It's not about the value of money, it's about the value of self.
Amen. Awesome.
Very good.
Yeah.
That's a very good dream. Anything else, Tanya?
Nope, that's it for now.
Okay.
Awesome.
Thank you all.
Well,
Boy, this has been a wonderful class. My goodness. A lot of things shared in it. It's quite valuable. So I appreciate it. And it's all because of you, all of you, that this has come about, this class.
right.
So,
It's all your fault.
yeah, I blame you in a good way.
Well, amen to it all. And thank you, everybody, for showing up and sharing your love. And thank you for everybody who wrote in. We all get the value and the benefit of all these questions and sharings and all that. So I listen to them literally all the time myself. And I love going back and listening after this because I get to literally take it in and hear it in a whole different way beyond just when we're doing it here live. So I look forward to those recordings. And as a reminder, if you want to re-listen to it right away, you can do it right on YouTube. Otherwise, give us a few days to get it edited and put up on our website. So, but until next time, I guess, is there any other last words before we go?
Just love you all very much, and I'm very grateful for you all. So thank you.
Yeah. Anything on your end, Tanya?
No, but it was a great class, great Q&A. Thank you so much.
Amen to that. And we look forward to seeing those of you who will see in Fort Wayne in a couple of weeks.
That's right.
We have the Confessions and Counseling class next Sunday yet. So if you guys want to come, you know how that is. We go dive into it, and I spend as long as needed I spend the number 40 for each person, as long as it takes, I guess, for each one. And those classes have been awesome and powerful, and I'm looking forward to it. So hopefully we'll see you next Sunday as well, and otherwise we'll see you at whichever next event. Thank you, everybody. It's been a great day.
Thank you.
Love y'all. Till next time.
Bye-bye.